Rain hit the hospital windows like fingers trying to get in. Nurse Elena Vale had heard every kind of scream that could tear through an emergency room. Mothers begging doctors to save their sons, men cursing through broken teeth, children crying from pain. They were too young to understand. But tonight, the ER was silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that made machines sound too loud. The kind that made every breath feel like a confession. Elena stood behind the nurse's station, with a stack of patient charts pressed against her chest, watching 6 black SUVs pull into the ambulance bay without sirens, without headlights, without permission. One by one, men in black suits stepped into the rain. They didn't run. They didn't shout. They moved like the hospital belonged to them. Security tried to stop them at the glass doors.
Stay down, Elena.
A single look from the tallest man made both guards step aside.
Not on my watch.
Elena's fingers tightened around the charts.
The ledger!
Dr. Hayes,
I've got it.
She whispered.
Move!
Who are they? The attending physician beside her had gone pale. His hand hovered near the phone, but he didn't dial. Then the doors opened. Cold rain swept across the white hospital floor as the men entered, bringing with them the smell of wet asphalt, expensive cologne, and blood. At the center of them was a gurney. On it lay a man dressed in a torn black shirt soaked dark at the ribs. His face was dangerously beautiful even through the blood and rainwater sharp jaw, dark lashes, black hair falling across his forehead, lips parted as if he had just escaped death and was bored by it. Elena had seen wounded men before, but she had never seen an entire room become afraid of one. Gunshot wound, one of the suited men said. His voice was calm, almost polite. 3 bullets. He stays alive. Dr. Hayes swallowed. We need to know who. The man reached into his coat. Every nurse froze, but he only pulled out a black card and placed it on the counter. No insurance logo. No name. Just a symbol stamped in silver, a serpent wrapped around a crown. Dr. Hayes stopped breathing. Elena saw it. The recognition. The fear. The decision to obey before asking anything else. Trauma 1, Dr. Hayes said quickly. The men pushed the gurney forward. Elena should have moved. She should have called another nurse. She should have followed protocol, asked questions, checked identification, documented everything. Instead, she stared at the wounded man's face. Something about him felt impossible, like a nightmare she had met before. As they rolled him past, his eyes opened. Dark, clear, awake, not confused, not afraid, not broken. His gaze locked onto Elena. The hospital disappeared. The rain faded. The machines, the voices, the rushing footsteps, all of it vanished beneath the weight of that stare. Elena couldn't move. His eyes narrowed slightly, not with pain but recognition. Her stomach dropped. No, that was impossible. She had never seen this man in her life. Had she? Keep moving, one of the bodyguards ordered. The gurney passed her, but his hand moved. Blood-slick fingers caught her wrist. The touch was weak, but the room reacted as if he had fired a gun. Every man in a black suit turned toward her. Dr. Hayes froze mid-step. Elena looked down at the man's hand wrapped around her skin, then back at his face. His lips parted. For 1 second his ruthless expression cracked. Something colder than pain moved through his eyes. Something personal. Something old. He pulled her closer with the last of his strength. Elena's breath caught. His voice came out low, rough, almost intimate. Don't let them know who you are. Her blood turned cold. She tried to pull away. What? His grip tightened. Not enough to hurt. Enough to warn. His eyes burned into hers like he was dragging a buried secret out of her bones. Then he whispered a name no one in that hospital knew. Not Elena Vale. Not the name on her badge. Not the name she had used for 12 years. Isabella. The chart slipped from Elena's arms and scattered across the floor. Every face in the trauma room turned toward her, and the wounded Mafia boss smiled faintly through the blood, like he had finally found what the entire city had been hiding. Top of form. Bottom of form. Top of form. Bottom of form. Elena did not sleep after the Mafia boss whispered the dead girl's name. She stood in the staff bathroom at 3 a.m, both hands braced against the sink, staring at herself beneath the cruel fluorescent light. Her name badge read Elena Vale. Registered nurse. Night shift. Emergency department. A plain name for a plain life. But the woman in the mirror looked like a liar. Her dark hair had loosened from its bun. There was dried blood near her wrist where his fingers had touched her. She scrubbed at it until her skin turned red, but the feeling stayed: the pressure of his hand, the heat of his stare, the impossible sound of that name. Isabella. She had not heard it spoken aloud in 12 years. Not by a living person. Not by anyone who should still remember. Elena? She flinched. Maya, the charge nurse, pushed the bathroom door open halfway. Her expression softened when she saw Elena's face. "Hey," Maya said carefully. "You okay?" Elena turned off the faucet too fast. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Elena reached for a paper towel and dried her hands with unnecessary focus. "I just need coffee." Maya stepped inside and lowered her voice. "That man they brought in, do you know him?" Elena's body went still. "No." "You sure?" Elena forced herself to look at her friend. "Why would you ask that?" "Because he grabbed you like you were the only real thing in the room." The words landed too close to the truth. Elena threw the paper towel away. "He was bleeding out. People say strange things when they're dying." "He didn't look like he was dying." Maya's voice dropped even lower. "He looked like he was giving orders." Elena said nothing, because that was exactly what it had felt like. After he whispered her real name, the trauma room had changed. Dr. Hayes had ordered everyone back to work, but the bodyguards had not stopped watching her. Their eyes followed every movement she made. When she reached for gauze, when she checked the IV line, when she handed instruments to the doctor, they looked at her as if she had become part of the emergency, as if she was not treating the danger, as if she was the danger. And the man on the table, the man they had called Luca Moretti, had never fully lost consciousness. Not when Dr. Hayes cut through his shirt. Not when Elena packed pressure against the wound near his ribs. Not when blood spread across her gloves, and the monitor screamed. His gaze found her again and again, like he was holding onto her face to stay alive, or like he had been hunting for it. By dawn, Luca Moretti was in a private, secured room on the surgical floor. 2 armed men stood outside his door. Another waited at the elevator. No one from administration complained. No one called the police. No one even said the word Mafia, though it breathed through every hallway like smoke. Elena signed out at 7:18 a.m. with shaking fingers. Outside, the storm had passed, leaving the city washed silver beneath the morning light. The streets smelled like rain, gasoline, and bakery bread from the corner shop that opened before sunrise. Normally, Elena liked this hour. The world felt less cruel before it fully woke up. But that morning, every black car made her pulse jump. She took the subway home because she always took the subway home. Because nurses with overdue rent and dead phone screens did not take taxis. Because routine was the only wall she had built strong enough to keep the past away. Inside the train, she sat by the window with her backpack on her lap, watching the city blur into gray tunnels and reflected faces. Her own reflection looked exhausted. 28 years old. Too young to feel this old. Too tired to be afraid properly. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Elena stared at it until it stopped. Then a message appeared. "You should not have let him touch you." Her throat tightened. Another message followed. "People remember bloodlines." The train rocked violently around a curve. Elena gripped the phone so hard her knuckles whitened. Bloodlines. No. No one knew. No one could know. She deleted the messages, then powered off the phone, as if darkness could swallow what had already been seen. By the time she reached her apartment building, the sun had risen behind a dirty veil of clouds. She lived on the 4th floor of an old brick walk-up, above a closed laundromat and a discount nail salon. The hallway always smelled faintly of bleach, dust, and someone else's dinner. Her apartment was small enough that she could see almost every corner from the door. A narrow kitchen. A second-hand couch. A stack of unpaid bills beside a cracked mug. One window overlooking an alley where rainwater collected in potholes. No photographs on the walls. No family. No proof that Elena Vale had existed before this city. She locked the door behind her and leaned against it, listening. Nothing. Only the old refrigerator humming. Only water ticking through pipes. Only her own breathing. She crossed the room and opened the bottom drawer beneath her bed. Inside, beneath folded sweaters, was a metal box with a broken clasp. She had not opened it in years. Her hand hovered above it. Then she pulled it out. The box was heavier than it looked. Inside lay pieces of a life she had buried badly. A child's silver bracelet, a faded photograph folded in half, an old passport with a different last name, and a newspaper clipping yellowed at the edges. The headline had blurred with time, but the photograph remained clear. A burning mansion. Police lights. A black car overturned near iron gates, and a girl whose face had been circled in red ink. Missing heiress presumed dead. Elena touched the edge of the clipping with trembling fingers. Her mother had told her never to look back. Not when they ran. Not when they changed names. Not when they arrived in a city where nobody knew them. Isabella died that night, her mother had whispered while cutting Elena's hair in a motel bathroom. You understand me? She died. If anyone asks, if anyone remembers, if anyone says that name, you run. But her mother was gone now. Cancer had taken her slowly, quietly, cruelly. And Elena had stopped running because there was nowhere left to go. She had built a life out of silence. She paid rent late but paid it. She worked double shifts and smiled at patients who screamed at her. She bought cheap soup, cheap shoes, cheap coffee, and told herself survival was the same thing as peace. It wasn't. Peace didn't make you hide every time a stranger looked too long. Peace didn't make you sleep with a chair under your doorknob. Peace didn't make your heart stop when a dying man whispered your real name. Elena picked up the folded photograph. It showed her at 16, standing beside a fountain in a white dress she hated. Her hair was longer then. Her smile was careful. Beside her stood her mother, beautiful and tense, one hand gripping Elena's shoulder like she expected someone to snatch her away. Behind them, half cut from the photograph, was a boy in a black suit. Tall, dark-haired, serious. His face was blurred by the crease. Elena frowned. She unfolded the picture slowly. The paper had split slightly down the center, but not enough to hide him. A teenage boy stood in the background, not smiling, not posing, not looking at the camera. He was looking at her. Elena's breath caught. The jaw was sharper now, the eyes darker, the face harder. But she knew him. Not from the hospital. From before. From the life that had burned. Luca Moretti had been there. The metal box slipped from her lap, spilling its contents across the floor. A knock hit the apartment door. Once. Hard. Elena froze. No one visited her. No one. The knock came again. 3 slow hits. Not impatient. Certain. She rose quietly, heart hammering, and moved toward the door. Through the peephole, the hallway looked empty. Then a voice came from the other side. Male. Calm. Familiar in the way a blade is familiar after you have already been cut. Miss Vale. Elena stepped back. The voice continued. My employer is awake. Her hand flew to her mouth. Outside the door, the man waited in silence. Then he said the sentence that made the floor seem to vanish beneath her feet. And he says Isabella has 10 minutes to decide whether she comes willingly. Top of form. Bottom of form. Elena did not open the door. For 10 seconds she stood in the center of her apartment with one hand pressed over her mouth and the other curled around nothing, as if her body had forgotten how to defend itself. The man outside waited. Not pounding. Not shouting. That was worse. People who had patience also had power. Elena Vale is not here, she said finally, though her voice sounded too thin to convince even herself. A pause. Then the man answered, My employer said you would say that. Her skin prickled. She looked around the apartment as if it might offer her a weapon, a plan, a miracle. There was a kitchen knife in the sink, a deadbolt on the door, a fire escape outside the window that had rusted shut 2 winters ago. Nothing that could stop whatever stood outside. The man spoke again, softer this time. He also said to tell you this is not a request from Luca Moretti. Elena's breath caught. It is protection from the people who shot him. A cold line opened down her spine. Her phone was still off on the kitchen counter. The unknown messages flashed in her mind. You should not have let him touch you. People remember bloodlines. The hallway remained silent. Elena moved toward the door, careful and slow. She did not unlock it. She only leaned close enough to speak. Tell your employer I don't know him. He knows. I don't know what he wants. He wants you alive. A bitter laugh escaped her before she could stop it. That's generous from a man who sent armed strangers to my apartment. He sent one, the man said. The others outside are not ours. Elena went still. Her eyes lifted to the peephole. The hallway was empty, except for the man in a dark coat standing just to the side, face half turned away. But beyond him, near the stairwell, a shadow shifted. Then another. Someone was there, watching. Her heart began to pound so hard she could hear it. The man outside did not look toward the stairwell. He didn't need to. Elena, he said, and now the calm in his voice had sharpened. Open the door. The stairwell door creaked. A boot step, then another. Elena's body moved before her mind did. She unlocked the chain, the deadbolt, the bottom lock. The man in the dark coat stepped inside fast, pushing the door shut behind him just as something struck the wood from the other side. Not a knock. A hit. Elena stumbled backward. The man grabbed her wrist and pulled her away from the door. "Stay behind me." "Who are you?" she demanded. "Matteo." Another hit slammed into the door. The frame shook. Matteo reached beneath his coat and pulled out a gun. Elena's stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. He didn't look at her. "Close your eyes if you need to." "I'm not closing my eyes in my own apartment." For the first time he glanced at her. A faint expression crossed his face. Approval, maybe. Or pity. The door exploded inward. Two men rushed in wearing rain-dark jackets and cheap black masks, not Luca's polished soldiers. These men moved messy, hungry, desperate. One had a knife, the other had a pistol. Matteo fired once. The sound cracked through the tiny apartment like thunder. Elena screamed and dropped behind the couch. The man with the knife hit the floor. The second man swung his gun toward Matteo, but Matteo slammed into him before he could shoot. They crashed into Elena's kitchen table, sending unpaid bills and a cracked mug flying. Elena crawled backward, breath tearing at her throat. The masked man saw her. His eyes changed. "There she is," he hissed. "The little ghost." He shoved Matteo hard, breaking free, and lunged toward Elena. She grabbed the closest thing she could reach, a ceramic lamp from beside the couch, and smashed it across his face. The man cursed, staggering. Matteo struck him from behind and drove him to the floor. Then there was silence. Real silence. Ugly silence. Elena stood trembling in the wreckage of her apartment, holding the broken base of the lamp like it could still save her. Matteo checked the hallway. Then he looked back at her. "You have 30 seconds to take what matters." Elena stared at the blood on her floor. "My apartment is no longer safe. My life was never safe." The words landed with brutal certainty. Elena hated him for saying it. She hated Luca Moretti more for being right. Matteo stepped toward the bedroom. "Documents, money, anything with your old name." Elena's hand tightened around the lamp. "Don't go through my things." He stopped. His eyes moved to the floor where the metal box had spilled open. The passport, the clipping, the photograph. His expression did not change, but something in the air did. He knew. Of course he knew. Everyone suddenly knew things they had no right to know. Elena crossed the room quickly and knelt beside the scattered pieces of her past, gathering them with shaking hands. The old passport slid beneath the bed. She reached for it, but Matteo got there first. He picked it up. For one dangerous second he looked at the name. Isabella De Luca. Elena snatched it from him. "Don't." Matteo lowered his gaze. "I'm not your enemy." That's exactly what enemies say before they decide what you're worth. His mouth tightened, but he said nothing. Elena shoved the passport, the photograph, and the clipping into her backpack. She added a small envelope of cash from the kitchen drawer, her mother's bracelet, and a sweater because her hands needed something normal to do. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. Too late. Always too late. Matteo moved to the broken doorway. "We go down the back stairs." Elena. The couch she had bought secondhand. The chipped bowl in the sink. The bills she had been afraid of yesterday. Yesterday, those bills had felt like the worst thing in her life. Now they looked almost innocent. Matteo led her through the hallway and down a narrow service staircase that smelled of damp concrete and old smoke. Elena's legs moved automatically. Her mind stayed upstairs with the blood, the door, the word ghost. At the rear exit, a black sedan waited in the alley. Elena stopped. "No." Matteo opened the car door. "Get in. I'm not going anywhere with you. You just had 2 men break into your apartment. And somehow that makes you trustworthy?" Matteo's gaze flicked past her shoulder. His face hardened. Elena turned. At the mouth of the alley, a gray van rolled slowly into view. No plates. Tinted windows. Matteo pushed her into the car. This time she didn't fight. The sedan launched forward so fast, Elena slammed against the leather seat. Matteo got in beside her, barking something in Italian to the driver. The car tore through the alley, tires slicing through puddles, the gray van surging behind them. Elena clutched the backpack against her chest. The city blurred outside. Morning traffic. Wet streets. A flower vendor, lifting buckets onto the sidewalk. A mother pulling a child away from the curb. Normal life continuing, while Elena's life split open in the back of a Mafia car. The van rammed them from behind. Elena gasped as her shoulder hit the door. Matteo reached across her, holding her in place. "Stay down." The gesture was protective. She hated that too. The driver took a hard turn, cutting across 2 lanes as horns exploded around them. The van followed. A window rolled down. Elena saw the barrel of a gun. Matteo shoved her head below the window line. Shots cracked. Glass shattered. Elena covered her ears, breathing in leather, gunpowder, and terror. Then their car swerved into an underground garage beneath a private medical building. Steel doors dropped behind them just as the van tried to follow. The crash echoed like a beast hitting a cage. The sedan stopped. Elena sat frozen, hair fallen across her face, backpack still locked in her arms. Matteo opened the door. "Move." She stepped out on unsteady legs. The garage was filled with black cars and men with earpieces. No one looked surprised. No one looked afraid. They looked prepared. As if this had all been expected. As if Elena had only just entered a war that had been waiting for her. An elevator opened at the far end of the garage. Inside stood another bodyguard. "Boss wants her upstairs." Elena's throat tightened. Luca, the man from the hospital. The boy from the photograph. The wounded monster who had whispered her real name like a secret he owned. Matteo guided her into the elevator without touching her this time. The doors closed. Elena stared at her reflection in the polished metal wall. There she was again. Elena Valle. Isabella De Luca. Nurse. Ghost. Pray. The elevator rose without making a sound. When the doors opened, she was no longer in a hospital room. She was in a penthouse suite, converted into a fortress. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, rain clouds hanging low over the skyline. Men stood near every exit. Medical equipment hummed beside a massive bed. Curtains moved slightly in the cold air from the open balcony door. And in the center of it all, Luca Moretti sat upright despite the bandages wrapped around his torso, bare chest marked with bruises, dark hair damp, eyes fixed on her before she even stepped inside. He looked paler than before. More dangerous, too. Some men became weaker after being shot. Luca looked offended by it. Elena stopped just inside the room. His gaze moved over her face, her torn sleeve, the blood near her shoe, the backpack clutched against her chest. A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Who touched you?" he asked. His voice was quiet. Everyone in the room went still. Elena lifted her chin, forcing anger into the place where fear wanted to live. "You don't get to ask me that." Luca's eyes returned to hers. For a moment, something almost like pain crossed his face. Then it vanished beneath control. "No," he said. "I don't." The honesty disarmed her more than arrogance would have. He reached toward the bedside table, picked up an old photograph, and turned it so she could see. It was the same fountain, the same white dress, the same teenage boy standing in the background. But this copy was not torn, not folded, not hidden in a box beneath a bed. It had been preserved, protected. Elena's breath caught. Luca watched her reaction. "I was there the night your family burned," he said. The room seemed to tilt. Elena's fingers went numb around the backpack strap. "My family didn't burn," she whispered. "They were murdered." Luca's expression darkened. "Yes." The word was soft. "Final. And the men who came for you this morning," he continued, "work for the man who ordered it." Elena shook her head. "No. That man is dead." Luca leaned back slightly, his face tightening from pain he refused to show. "That is what your mother was supposed to believe." The floor disappeared beneath her. Elena took one step back. Matteo blocked the door without moving like he meant to. Luca's gaze sharpened. "Elena." She flinched. He noticed. His voice changed. "Isabella." The name cut through the room. This time, she did not freeze. This time, rage rose hotter than fear. "Don't call me that." Luca's eyes held hers. "You need to remember who you are." "I remember exactly who I am." Her voice broke, but she kept going. "I am the woman who worked 14-hour shifts while men like you bled all over my floor. I am the woman who buried her mother with no family beside her. I am the woman who survived, because nobody knew I existed." Luca said nothing. Elena stepped closer, shaking now, but not backing down. "And then you said that name. You brought them to me." A dangerous silence filled the suite. Every guard lowered his eyes. Luca absorbed the accusation without blinking. Yes, he said. Elena stopped. I brought them out, he corrected quietly. There is a difference. Her chest rose and fell too fast. You used me. His face hardened. I saved you. You ruined my life. Your life was a locked room with a target painted on the door. The words hit like a slap. Elena's eyes burned. For 1 second she wanted to hurt him. To slap the cold control off his face. To make him bleed in some way she could understand. Then Luca looked past her. Leave us. No one moved. His voice dropped. Now. The room emptied. Matteo was last. He gave Elena one look before closing the door behind him. Then she was alone, with Luca Moretti. The city stretched behind him in silver and black, rain trembling against the glass. He should have looked vulnerable with bandages around his body and an IV in his arm. He didn't. He looked like a wounded king, deciding which kingdoms to burn. Elena swallowed. Why do you care whether I live? Luca's gaze lowered to the photograph in his hand. For the first time since she'd seen him, his expression loosened. Not enough to become gentle, but enough to become human. Because when I was 17, he said, your father put a gun to my head and told me to choose. Elena went cold. Choose what? Luca looked up at her. His eyes were dark with something older than guilt. You or my brother? Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. Outside, lightning flashed over the city. Luca's voice lowered to almost nothing. And I chose wrong. Top of form. Bottom of form. Elena did not speak. She couldn't. The room around her, the glass walls, the rain-dark city, the armed men beyond the door, the medical machines humming beside Luca's bed fell away until only his last words remained. And I chose wrong. Her throat tightened around a breath that would not come. Luca watched her with the kind of stillness that did not belong to injured men. He did not reach for her. He did not explain too quickly. He let the silence become cruel, as if he knew she needed it. Elena's voice came out barely above a whisper. What did you say? Luca's hand tightened slightly around the old photograph. I was 17, he said. My father sent me to your family's estate as part of a deal. A peace offering, a hostage dressed as a guest. Elena stared at him. You were Moretti, she said, as if the name itself tasted poisonous. Yes, my father hated the Morettis. Your father hated everyone he couldn't control. The words struck something in her, but she did not defend him, because she remembered her father only in fragments. A deep voice behind closed doors. Men going silent when he entered rooms. Her mother crying quietly in marble bathrooms. Servants lowering their eyes. Guns hidden inside beautiful houses. As a child, Elena had mistaken fear for respect. Luca looked toward the rain-streaked window. The De Lucas and the Morettis were supposed to end a war that night. Your father invited every important family in the city, politicians, judges, bankers, men who pretended not to know where their money came from. Elena's fingers curled against her palms. I remember music, she whispered. Luca's eyes returned to her. Yes, and white roses, yes. And my mother telling me not to drink anything unless she gave it to me. His expression changed, only slightly, but she saw it. That memory mattered. Elena's chest tightened. She knew. Luca did not answer immediately. That was answer enough. She suspected, he said finally. Not everything, but enough. Elena shook her head, stepping away from him. No, my mother said it was a fire. She said men attacked the house. She said we ran before anyone saw us.
Is this her?
You did run.
She's why I'm here.
Luca's jaw flexed.
Oh God, I never knew.
But the fire was not the beginning. The air thinned. Elena remembered smoke, screams, her mother's hand crushing hers as they ran through a hallway where portraits burned on the walls. She remembered looking back once and seeing flames reflected in polished marble.
Not on my
but
watch.
Before that,
hold on.
There was only darkness.
The ledger!
A blank space in her mind where the night should have been. What happened before the fire? She asked. Luca looked at her like he had spent years dreading that question. Your father gathered the heads of 3 families in the East Wing, he said. My father was there. So was my older brother, Nico. They thought they were signing territory agreements. But your father had made another deal behind closed doors. With who? Luca's face turned colder. Victor Sanz. The name meant nothing to Elena. But the way Luca said it made the room feel colder. He was not as powerful then, Luca continued. He worked in the shadows. Smuggling, weapons, political favors. Your father thought he could use him to erase the Morettis and absorb what remained. Elena's stomach twisted. My father started the massacre? Luca's silence cut deeper than words. No, she whispered, he wouldn't. Luca's gaze hardened, but not with cruelty. With truth. Your father ordered my family slaughtered in his own house during a peace dinner. Elena stepped back until her spine met the wall. The cold glass shocked her through her shirt. Luca watched her absorb it. My brother found out, he said. Nico tried to warn me. He tried to get me out, but your father's men caught us near the garden corridor. Elena closed her eyes. A flash came to her. A hallway. A boy's voice shouting. A hand over her mouth. Her mother whispering, "Do not make a sound." She opened her eyes, trembling. I was there. Luca's expression sharpened. Elena pressed her hands against her temples. I remember hiding, behind the service curtains. The words made her blood stop. He knew. Of course he knew. She looked at him, horrified. You saw me? Luca's voice dropped. I never stopped seeing you. For one breath, the dangerous Mafia boss disappeared. In his place was the 17-year-old boy from the photograph, standing in a burning house, carrying a guilt he had never put down. Elena, he said, then corrected himself with visible effort. Isabella, your father dragged you out from behind those curtains. Her knees weakened. No, he put you in front of me because he knew I had seen you. He knew I had helped your mother hide you earlier that night. You helped her? Luca looked down at the photograph again. She found me in the corridor before dinner. She knew something was wrong. She begged me to watch the west staircase. She said if anything happened, I had to get you out. Elena's lips parted, but no sound came. Her mother had trusted him. Her mother, who had trusted almost no one. Luca's voice became rougher. I was supposed to protect you. The machines beside the bed beeped softly. Steady. Too steady. Elena's pulse was anything but. What did my father make you choose? She asked, though some part of her already feared the answer. Luca lifted his eyes. My brother was on his knees, beaten, bleeding. Your father had a gun in one hand and your wrist in the other. A sharp pain tore through Elena's head. Not from his words. From memory. Her father's ring digging into her skin. Her mother screaming somewhere far away. A boy with dark eyes standing across from her, blood on his face, shaking with rage and fear. Luca. He told me one of you would walk out, Luca said. Not both. Elena's hand covered her mouth. Nico told me to choose you. His voice cracked slightly on the name. Only once. Barely. But enough to expose the wound beneath the monster. He said I had a whole life to hate him for it later. He told me to save the girl. Elena's eyes filled. What did you do? Luca looked at her. I chose my brother. The confession entered the room like a blade. Elena stopped breathing. Luca did not look away. I was 17, he said. He was my blood, my brother, the person who raised me when our father was too cruel to remember we were children. Elena's tears slipped before she could stop them. And me? His face tightened. You were supposed to die. The words should have destroyed her. Instead, they opened a door. A memory came violently, bright and broken. Smoke. Shouting. Her father raising the gun. Luca screaming. Her mother rushing from the side corridor with a silver knife in her hand. A gunshot. Glass breaking. Her mother dragging Elena backward as flames burst across the curtains. The chandelier falling. Men shouting that the girl was gone. Gone. Not dead. Gone. Elena slid down the glass wall until she crouched on the floor, shaking. My mother saved me, she whispered. Luca swung his legs over the side of the bed too fast. Pain flashed across his face, but he forced himself upright. Elena. Don't. He stopped. She looked up at him through tears. You chose to let me die. Yes. No excuse. No softening. No lie. The honesty was almost cruel enough to respect. And now you think protecting me fixes it? No. Then why? Luca stood. The movement cost him. She saw blood bloom faintly beneath one bandage, saw his hand grip the bed frame until his knuckles turned white. But still he stood. Because men like Luca Moretti would rather bleed than appear weak. Because my brother died anyway, he said. Elena froze. Luca's eyes were black with memory. Your father shot him before the fire reached the room. Then Victor Sands shot your father in the back and took the evidence he came for. Elena's heart slammed. What evidence? Luca reached for a file on the bedside table and threw it onto the floor between them. Photographs spilled across the marble. Men in suites. Bank records. A child's birth certificate. Elena's birth certificate. But not the one she had grown up hiding. This one had a different seal. A different signature. A different father. Her hand shook as she reached for it. Luca said nothing. Elena read the name once. Then again. Her breath disappeared. Father, Victor Sands. The paper slipped from her fingers. No. Luca's expression did not change. But his eyes did. This is why he never stopped looking for you. Elena shook her head harder. No, my father was Antonio De Luca. Antonio raised you because your mother begged him to. No. Victor Sands wanted an heir with De Luca blood, and his name hidden from every enemy he had. No. He used your mother. When she tried to run, Antonio kept you inside the De Luca family to protect her. Elena covered her ears. Stop. But Luca's voice cut through anyway. Victor did not order the massacre because of territory. He ordered it because your mother was going to expose him, and because Antonio was going to give you a new identity before Victor could claim you. Elena stared at him, as the world rearranged itself into something monstrous. The father she had feared was not her father. The enemy she had never known was the blood inside her. The men who came for her were not hunting a witness. They were hunting an heir. Luca lowered his voice. Victor Sands is alive. He controls half the city through men who smile on television and kill in private. And now that I said your name in that hospital, he knows Isabella De Luca survived. Elena's body felt hollow. And you? She whispered. What do you want from me? Luca held her Gaza. For 12 years, I thought I chose wrong because I let an innocent girl die. He stepped closer, bleeding, wounded, terrifyingly calm. Then last night you were standing in front of me with my blood on your hands. Elena could not move. Luca stopped close enough that she could see the pain he refused to show. I don't want your forgiveness, he said. I don't deserve it. His voice dropped. I want the chance to make the second choice differently. Behind them, thunder rolled over the city. Then Matteo burst through the door without knocking. His face was controlled, but his eyes were not. Boss. Luca did not look away from Elena. What? Matteo's jaw tightened. They found her mother's grave. Elena's blood went cold. Matteo looked at her. There was a message carved into the stone. Luca's expression turned deadly. Elena forced the words out. What message? Matteo hesitated. Then he said it. Bring my daughter home. Top of form. Bottom of form. Elena did not remember crossing the room. 1 second she was on the floor beside the scattered papers of her ruined life. The next, she had Matteo by the front of his coat. What did you say? Matteo did not touch her hands. He did not push her away. But his eyes flicked to Luca, as if asking permission to answer something that would break her. Elena turned on Luca. What did he do to her grave? Luca's face had gone completely still. Not calm. Worse. The kind of stillness that came before violence. Matteo, he said. Matteo lowered his voice. The cemetery caretaker was found unconscious. Security cameras disabled. The headstone was cracked down the center. Fresh carving across the front. Elena's fingers went numb. Her mother's grave was the only place in the city where Elena had ever allowed herself to be Isabella. She went there once a month before sunrise, leaving white carnations because they were cheap, and because her mother had hated roses after that night. She never spoke loudly. She never stayed long. She only stood with her hands in her coat pockets and whispered the things she was too tired to carry. I paid rent this month. I helped a little boy breathe again. I'm still here. I miss you. Now even that had been touched. Marked. Violated. Victor Sands had reached into the only sacred corner of her life and dragged his fingers across it. Elena backed away from Matteo slowly. Luca watched her. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Not afraid of enemies. Afraid of what grief might do to her. Elena, he said. She laughed once, sharp and broken. Don't say my name like you have any right to comfort me. His mouth tightened. I wasn't going to comfort you. Good. I was going to tell you we leave in 5 minutes. She stared at him. What? Luca reached for the IV in his arm and pulled the tape free. Elena moved instinctively. Stop. You'll tear the line. He tore it anyway. Blood welled at his hand. Of course it did. Of course the man would rather bleed than stay still. Elena grabbed gauze from the medical tray and pressed it against his arm harder than necessary. You are unbelievable. His eyes dropped to her hand on his skin. Something heated passed through his gaze, then vanished. You're coming with me, he said. No, I'm not. You have no apartment, no safe workplace, no phone security, no legal identity Victor won't trace once he decides to use real resources. Elena pressed the gauze harder. Luca did not flinch. And whose fault is that? Mine. The answer came so fast she almost hated him less for half a second. Almost. Then he continued. So I'm fixing it. You don't fix people by kidnapping them. If I wanted to kidnap you, Isabella, you would have woken up in my house. Her eyes flashed. Do not call me that. Then stop acting like Elena Vale can survive this. The words hit too hard. She stepped back, throwing the bloodied gauze onto the tray. I survived before you. You hid before me. I lived. You endured. The room snapped silent. Elena's chest rose and fell. He had no right. No right to see that clearly. Luca turned away first, but not in surrender. He reached for the black shirt Matteo handed him and pulled it on with visible effort. The fabric brushed over bandages and bruises. His jaw tightened once, but he made no sound. A man with 3 bullet wounds should have been in bed. Luca Moretti looked like he was preparing for war because someone had touched a grave. Elena hated that a small, fragile part of her understood. I'm going to the cemetery, she said. No. The single word was flat. Final. Her grief ignited. My mother is buried there. And Victor may have men waiting for you there. Then let them wait. Luca turned back to her slowly. Every guard in the room seemed to stop breathing. Elena did not care. You don't get to decide what I do with my mother, she said. His eyes sharpened. You think this is about your mother? The cruelty of it sliced through her. She stepped forward and slapped him. The sound cracked across the suite. Matteo moved. Luca lifted one hand. Everyone froze. Elena stood inches from him, trembling, palm burning, eyes wet and furious. Say that again, she whispered. Luca's cheek had turned faintly red. He looked down at her with something dark and unreadable. Then he lowered his voice. I'm saying Victor chose that grave because he knew grief would make you reckless. Elena's breath shook. He wants you to run to her. He wants you emotional, alone, exposed. Luca's gaze held hers like a hand around her throat. He did not carve that message for your mother. He carved it for you. The rage inside Elena faltered. Because beneath the harshness, she heard the truth. Victor had touched the grave because he knew she would come. Because some wounds could still be used as leashes. Luca stepped closer, slow enough that she could move away if she wanted. She didn't. His voice dropped. I will take you there when it is secure. I don't need your permission. No. His eyes burned into hers. You need an army. Elena looked past him at the men filling the room. Expensive suits, hidden guns, cold faces, a world built on violence and loyalty and fear. This was his world. The one her mother had died trying to keep her out of. The one that had waited 12 years to swallow her whole. I'm not one of you, she whispered. No, Luca said. You're the reason men like us go to war. The words should have frightened her. They did. But something else moved beneath the fear. Something dangerous. Something warm. Something she hated in herself. Matteo cleared his throat carefully. The cars are ready. Luca nodded. Route 3. Boss, with your injuries. Luca looked at him. Matteo stopped speaking. Elena almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because the absurdity of men obeying a half-dead criminal while she stood there holding her dead mother's bracelet in her fist was too much. Luca moved toward the door. Elena stayed where she was. He stopped without turning. Come with me. No. A pause. Then he looked over his shoulder. Not angry. Not surprised. Almost tired. What do you need? The question disarmed her. Because she had expected force. Threats. Orders. Not that. Elena looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. I need 5 minutes alone. No. Her eyes lifted, furious. His expression remained hard. Anything else? Luca. His name left her mouth before she could stop it. The room seemed to react to it. Every man heard the shift. So did he. His gaze darkened, but his voice stayed controlled. You can hate me in a locked room with guards outside. You can curse me in the car. You can break every glass in my house if that helps. But you will not be alone while Victor Sands knows you're alive. Elena stared at him. There it was. The cage. Golden, armed, justified. Still a cage. And the worst part was that she knew he was right. So she did the only thing left. She walked past him without permission. The convoy left through a private underground exit beneath the building. Elena sat in the back of the center SUV. Luca beside her, Matteo in front. 2 cars ahead. 3 behind. Men on motorcycles flanking the sides like shadows in motion. The city had turned brighter after the storm, washed clean in a way that felt insulting. People crossed streets with coffee cups. Delivery cyclists wove through traffic. A man laughed into his phone outside a bakery. No one knew that a dead heiress sat behind tinted glass beside a wounded Mafia boss, while half the city's underworld searched for her. Elena kept her backpack in her lap and stared out the window. Luca said nothing. His silence filled more space than other men's shouting. After 10 minutes, she glanced at him despite herself. He was too pale. A thin line of sweat had appeared near his temple. His left hand rested against his ribs beneath the open coat, fingers pressing where the bandage hid the worst wound. Nurse instinct overpowered anger. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I've had worse." "That's not medical information." His mouth almost moved. Not a smile. Something less impossible. Elena hated that she noticed. "You need to lie down," she said. "I need to keep you alive. You need stitches checked, antibiotics, fluids, and probably a psychiatric evaluation for leaving a hospital 12 hours after getting shot." This time, his mouth did curve slightly. Just enough to make him look younger. More like the boy in the photograph. More dangerous because of it. "You always talk to armed men like this?" "Only the dramatic ones." Matteo made a sound from the front seat. It might have been a cough. Luca's eyes flicked to him. The sound stopped. Elena looked away quickly, irritated by the strange warmth that had entered the car for half a second. She could not afford warmth. Not from him. Not from the boy who chose wrong. The SUV turned into a gated estate hidden behind stone walls and tall black iron. Cameras followed them from every corner. Guards stepped aside before the cars fully stopped. The house beyond the gates was not a mansion in the loud, vulgar way Elena expected. It was worse. Old money, dark stone, tall windows, ivy climbing along one wing like veins, beautiful in the way a knife could be beautiful if polished long enough. "This is where you live?" she asked. "Sometimes. Of course." The SUV stopped beneath a covered entrance. Luca opened his door, but Elena caught his sleeve. The movement surprised them both. He looked down at her hand. She released him immediately. "Wait for help," she said stiffly. "You're going to tear something." His eyes stayed on her face. "Are you worried about me?" "I'm worried about cleaning your blood off my shoes." The faint curve returned. "Liar." Her breath caught. One word. Soft. Too intimate. She got out before he could see how it affected her. Inside, the house was warmer than she expected. Not cozy, never that. But lived in. Dark wood floors, low golden lamps, shelves of old books, oil paintings of men who looked like they had ruined countries for breakfast. A woman in her 60s waited near the entrance, hands folded in front of her. She wore a black dress, silver hair pulled into a clean knot, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Mr. Moretti," she said, disapproval heavy in every syllable. "You look dead. Not yet, Rosa. Because God is busy punishing other people." Luca removed his coat. "This is Elena." Rosa's gaze moved to Elena. It softened. "Not much." "Enough." "No," Rosa said quietly. "This is Isabella." Elena's stomach tightened. Luca's voice cut in. "Rosa." The older woman lowered her eyes immediately. But the damage was done. Elena stepped back. "How does everyone know?" Rosa looked genuinely pained. "Not everyone, child." "I am not a child." "No," Rosa said. "You stopped being one too early." The tenderness nearly broke her. Elena looked away. Luca spoke from behind her. "Rosa worked in your house." Elena turned slowly. The older woman's face blurred for a second behind memory. A kitchen warm with bread, hands braiding her hair when her mother was too busy crying. A woman pressing a sugar cube into her palm and whispering, "Don't tell your mama." "Elena?" Luca asked. But she was not Elena in that moment. She was small, barefoot on marble, hiding beneath a kitchen table while adults fought in rooms with closed doors. "Rosalina," she whispered. Rosa's eyes filled instantly. "Oh, my girl." Elena took one step forward before she stopped herself. Too much. Too fast. Too dangerous. Rosa saw the retreat and did not chase her. Smart woman. Kind woman. A woman who knew frightened things survived only when allowed distance. "You'll stay in the East Wing," Luca said. "Private rooms, Secure windows. No one enters without your consent. Elena gave him a bitter look. Except you? His eyes held hers. Except me if there is danger. At least the cage comes with rules. Something flickered in his face. Regret, maybe. Or recognition. He turned to Matteo. Double the perimeter. Find out who leaked the cemetery location, and send men to secure the grave before sunset. Matteo nodded. Already moving. Move faster. Matteo left. Rosa's gaze dropped to Luca's shirt. The black fabric had darkened near his ribs. You are bleeding on my floor. Luca looked annoyed, as if his body had embarrassed him. Elena exhaled sharply. Sit down. His eyes moved to her. Excuse me, you heard me. Rosa raised one eyebrow. For the first time since Elena had entered, every guard nearby seemed deeply interested in looking somewhere else. Luca stared at her. Elena stared back. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, Luca sat in the nearest chair. Rosa's mouth twitched. Elena dropped her backpack, grabbed the medical kit one of the guards produced, and knelt beside him. Shirt off. Luca's gaze darkened. Elena realized what she had said only after the room changed temperature. She snapped, "For the wound, of course." His voice was too smooth. She hated him. She hated that her pulse answered anyway. Luca unbuttoned the shirt and pulled it open. His torso was bruised, bandaged, marked with old scars and new violence. Elena had seen bodies before, hundreds of them. But Luca's body told a story written in knives, bullets, and survival. She forced herself to focus. The bandage near his ribs was soaked through. You tore the stitches. I suspected. You suspected. I was busy. You were being stupid. His eyes stayed on her face. You're angry. I'm observant. You're shaking. Her hands froze for half a second. Then she pressed antiseptic to the wound. Hard. Luca inhaled once through his nose. Good. Still observant? He asked. Still bleeding? Rosa made another small sound and left before anyone could accuse her of laughing. Elena worked carefully despite herself. She cleaned the wound, checked the torn edges, packed fresh gauze, and wrapped the bandage tight around his ribs. Luca stayed silent through the pain. But she saw the strain in his throat, the tension in his hands. He was not invincible. That made him harder to hate. When she finished, she sat back on her heels. You need rest. I need answers. You need a doctor. I have a nurse. She looked up sharply. He held her gaze. There was no smirk now. Only something quietly possessive and unbearably serious. Elena's voice lowered. I'm not yours. Luca leaned forward slightly, enough that she could smell rain and blood and cedar from his skin. No, he said, you are not. Her breath caught. His eyes moved over her face like he was memorizing every reaction. But every man who thinks he can claim you will have to go through me first. The words should have sounded like a threat. They did. But not to her. That was the problem. Elena rose too quickly. I want to see the room. Luca did not move. Rosa will take you. I can walk. I know. Again, the quiet answer disarmed her. He did not speak as Rosa returned and led Elena up a curved staircase to the east wing. The hallway smelled of old wood and lavender polish. Her room was enormous compared to her apartment cream walls, heavy curtains, a bed too large for one person, and windows overlooking a private garden enclosed by stone walls. A prison with flowers. Rosa set a folded sweater on the bed. You can bathe. Clothes are in the wardrobe. Nothing was chosen by him. Elena glanced over. Rosa understood the question. I chose them. Why? Because powerful men think protection means locks. Rosa's eyes softened. Women know it also means having something clean to wear. Elena looked away before gratitude became visible. After Rosa left, Elena locked the door and stood alone in the silence. For the first time since the apartment attack, no one was watching her. Maybe. She checked the windows. Locked. She checked the bathroom. Empty. Then she showered until the water turned cold. Blood ran pink at her feet. Luca's blood. The masked man's blood. Maybe her old life bleeding out too. When she came out wrapped in a robe, she found her backpack on the chair, untouched. Beside it lay her mother's bracelet, polished clean, placed on a folded black cloth. Elena picked it up. A note sat underneath. In Luca's handwriting, your mother saved you once. Let me guard what remains until you decide what to do with the truth. No demand. No apology. No signature. Elena hated that her eyes burned. She fastened the bracelet around her wrist with trembling fingers, and crossed to the window. In the garden below, Luca stood beneath the covered terrace with Matteo and 3 armed men. He should have been resting. Instead, he pointed to maps spread across a table while rain began again, thin and silver. Even wounded, every man bent toward his command. Then, as if feeling her gaze, Luca looked up. Their eyes met through the glass. Elena did not step back. Neither did he. For one long moment, the distance between them felt less like safety and more like a lie. Then Matteo said something that changed Luca's expression completely. The warmth vanished. The monster returned. Luca looked away from her and down at the phone in Matteo's hand. Even from the 2nd floor, Elena saw his face harden. A minute later, Rosa knocked once and entered without waiting for an answer. Her face was pale. Elena turned from the window. What happened? Rosa held out a phone. On the screen was a live video. A cemetery. Her mother's cemetery. A man stood beside the broken grave wearing a dark suit and leather gloves. His face was not fully visible beneath the umbrella, but his voice came through clearly. Smooth. Older. Patient. Elena Vale is a sweet name, the man said to the camera, but daughters should not hide from their fathers. Elena's body went cold. The camera tilted down to the cracked headstone. White carnations lay scattered in the mud. Then the man's gloved hand lifted something from the grave. A silver locket Elena had buried with her mother. Her knees almost gave out. The man opened it and smiled. Come home, Isabella, he said softly, or I will start digging up every secret your mother died to bury. Top of form. Bottom of form. Elena watched the video 3 times. Not because she wanted to. Because her mind refused to believe it the first time. The cemetery, the rain, the cracked headstone, the white carnations ground into the mud like small dead birds. Her mother's name carved in gray stone. And Victor Sands standing beside it, as if grief were a stage he had rented for the evening. Come home, Isabella. The words crawled beneath Elena's skin. Rosa took the phone gently when Elena's fingers began to shake too hard to hold it. My girl, she whispered. Elena barely heard her. All she could see was the silver locket in Victor's gloved hand. Her mother had worn it every day when Elena was young. She used to touch it whenever she was afraid, one thumb brushing the tiny hinge as if there were a prayer hidden inside. After the cancer took her, Elena had placed it in the coffin herself because she couldn't bear the thought of keeping it. Now Victor had touched it, opened it, smiled at it. Something inside Elena went very quiet. Not calm, not peaceful. Worse. The kind of quiet that came when fear finally stepped aside and left rage alone in the room. Rosa touched her arm. Elena, where is he? Rosa hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Elena turned and walked toward the door. Elena, wait. But Elena was already moving. Down the hallway. Past 2 guards who straightened the moment they saw her face. Down the curved staircase where every step felt too slow for the violence building in her chest. She found Luca in the war room. That was the only word for it. The library had been transformed into a command center. Maps covered the long wooden table. Red pins marked locations across the city. Phones rang and stopped. Men spoke in low voices, passing tablets, photographs, names. At the center stood Luca. Black shirt half buttoned, bandage hidden, but not forgotten. Face cut from shadow and control. Matteo stood beside him holding the phone from the video. When Elena entered, every voice died. Luca turned.
Is this her?
The moment he saw her,
She's
his
why I'm
expression
here.
changed.
Oh
Not
God,
softened,
I never knew.
focused. Elena. She walked straight to him and took the phone from Matteo's hand. No one stopped her. She held it up between them. Fin him. Luca's eyes stayed on hers.
Stay down,
We
Elena.
are.
I've got
No.
you.
Her voice
They're
was
getting
steady,
closer!
and that frightened even
Not on
her.
my watch. Hold
Find
on.
him now. Matteo
The
looked
ledger!
toward Luca.
I've got it.
We traced
Move.
the upload through 3 relays. The stream bounced from public networks near the cemetery, then through a burner tower near the south docks. So he's hiding. Luca's jaw tightened. Victor has survived this long because he never stands where the camera shows him standing. Elena stepped closer. He was at my mother's grave. He wanted you to believe that. I saw him. You saw an umbrella, gloves, his voice, and a grave he wanted you to see. Her rage flashed. You think I don't know what I saw? I think grief makes traps look like doors. The words hit too close again. Elena hated him for how often the truth sounded cruel in his mouth. She threw the phone onto the table. It slid across the map and struck a glass ashtray. My mother ran from him, she said. She changed our names. She buried herself in cheap apartments and night shifts and hospitals she couldn't afford because of him. Then she died, terrified I would be found. And now he gets to stand over her grave and call himself my father? Her voice cracked on the last word. The room remained silent. Men who had probably shot people without blinking lowered their eyes. Luca did not. He watched her like every word had entered him, and found an old wound. He is not your father, he said. Elena swallowed hard. The paper said he is. Blood is not fatherhood. She laughed without humor. You know a lot about fatherhood? His face went cold. Matteo's eyes flicked down. Rosa appeared silently at the doorway behind Elena, but did not enter. Luca's voice lowered. Enough to know, monsters often build families just to have something smaller to destroy. The room shifted. Elena heard something beneath the statement. Not theory. Memory. Luca turned back to Matteo before she could ask. Where is Salvatore? On his way. Bring him through the lower entrance. No phones. No escort except ours. Elena looked between them. Who is Salvatore? Luca didn't answer right away. Matteo did. Your mother's lawyer. The words struck Elena like a hand against the chest. My mother didn't have a lawyer. Luca looked at her. She did. No, she didn't. She had hospital debt, a broken car, and a landlord who raised the rent every year because he knew she wouldn't fight. She had a lawyer before she became Elena Vale's mother. Elena stared at him. Luca nodded to the men in the room. Out. No one argued. Chairs moved. Papers were gathered. Doors opened and closed. Within seconds, the library emptied until only Luca, Elena, Matteo, and Rosa remained. Then Luca looked at Matteo. Matteo hesitated. Luca's eyes sharpened. Matteo left too. The door closed behind him. Elena stood across from Luca, with the long table between them like a border. Neither could cross safely. Rosa stayed near the shelves, hands clasped, face drawn. Luca reached into a locked drawer beneath the table and removed a sealed envelope. Cream paper. Old wax. Her mother's name written across the front, in handwriting Elena recognized instantly. Serafina. Her breath stopped. Luca placed the envelope on the table but did not push it toward her. Your mother gave this to Salvatore 3 weeks before the massacre. Elena's eyes burned. You had this? No. But you knew. I found out 2 years ago that Salvatore was alive. 2 years? Luca's silence was the wrong answer. The rage came back hotter. You knew there was something from my mother for 2 years? I knew there might be. And you didn't find me? I was told you were dead. You said you saw me last night and knew. His eyes darkened. I saw a nurse who looked like a ghost I had buried. Then you looked at me like you didn't remember. And for 1 second, I thought I was dying enough to hallucinate. The honesty should not have mattered. It did anyway. Elena looked down at the envelope. Her mother's handwriting blurred. She wrote to the lawyer before everything happened. Yes. Why? Luca's voice became quiet. Because she was preparing to testify against Victor Sands. Elena's fingers curled into fists. Rosa closed her eyes. Luca continued, each word deliberate. Your mother had evidence of Victor's network, names of officials, bank accounts, judges, police captains, shipping routes. She had proof that Victor was using DeLuca territory to move weapons through the city and planning to frame the Morettis for it. Elena tried to breathe through the cold expanding inside her. My mother was going to expose him. Yes. And my father Antonio knew? Luca's mouth tightened slightly. Antonio was many things. Cruel, proud, controlling. But he hated Victor Sands more than he loved power. That isn't an answer. No, Luca said. Not at first. When he learned what Victor had done to your mother, he kept her close. Not kindly, not gently. But he kept her alive. When he found out you were Victor's child, he could have handed you over. Elena's voice thinned. But he didn't. No. Why? Rosa answered from behind her. Because your mother threatened to burn the entire DeLuca empire to the ground if he did. Elena turned. Rosa's face was pale with old grief. She was not weak, your mother, Rosa said. Frightened, yes. Trapped, yes. But never weak. She looked Antonio DeLuca in the eye and told him if Victor took you, she would speak every secret she knew before every camera in the city. Elena saw her mother differently for a moment. Not the tired woman vomiting into a plastic bowl between chemo treatments. Not the woman counting cash at the kitchen table, trying to hide bills under grocery coupons. A younger woman. Beautiful. Cornered. Terrified. Still holding a blade to the throat of powerful men. Elena's eyes filled. She never told me. She wanted you clean of it, Rosa whispered. She wanted you free. A bitter smile trembled across Elena's mouth. Free. The word tasted impossible. Luca's gaze stayed on the envelope. Victor wants whatever she hid. Elena looked back at him. I thought he wanted me. He does. Then what's in the envelope? Luca's silence returned. This time it was not hesitation. It was dread. Elena reached for the envelope. Luca's hand came down over it. Not hard, but enough. Her eyes lifted slowly. Move your hand. Once you open it, you cannot unknow what is inside. I lost that luxury when you said my name in the ER. Pain flickered across his face. Then he moved his hand. Elena broke the old wax seal. Inside were 3 things. A letter, a small brass key, and a photograph. Not of Elena. Not of Victor. Of Luca. He was 17, younger and leaner, with a bruise beneath one eye and blood on the corner of his mouth. He stood beside a black car, looking furious at whoever held the camera. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, were 5 words. He is not like them. Elena looked up. Luca had gone still. Not his usual stillness. Not control. Shock. He had not seen the photograph before. Rosa made a soft sound behind her. Elena unfolded the letter. Her mother's handwriting covered both sides of the page, elegant and rushed, as if written by a woman who knew time was hunting her. My Isabella, if you are reading this, then I failed to keep the past buried. Forgive me. I wanted you to inherit mornings without fear, windows without shadows, and a name that did not make men reach for guns. Victor Sands is your blood, but he is not your family. He will call you daughter because he believes blood is ownership. Do not believe him. Antonio De Luca raised you under his name for reasons that were never pure, but he did protect you from Victor. The truth is uglier than a child should ever carry. I chose silence because silence kept you breathing. There is evidence hidden where only my daughter would know to look, but the key alone is not enough. You will need the boy in the photograph. If he is alive, trust him once, only once. Not because he is innocent. No one born into those families is innocent. Trust him because, on the night everything burned, he tried to save you before he was forced to choose. Elena stopped reading. Her hands trembled. Luca stared at her. The room had gone so quiet the rain against the windows sounded violent. She looked down and forced herself to continue. I saw his face when your father made him choose. He was a child asked to pay a man's debt. Do not let his guilt become your cage, but do not mistake guilt for cruelty. Victor will come for you when he realizes you survived. He will not start with violence. He will start with truth twisted into a leash. He will tell you he loved me. He did not. He will tell you he lost you. He did not. He will tell you the Moretti boy betrayed you. He was betrayed too. The brass key belongs to box 317 inches, the old Meridian station. Inside is enough to destroy Victor Sands, but only if you are brave enough to become the woman I raised and ruthless enough to survive the men who will fear her. I love you beyond every name they gave us. Mama. Elena lowered the letter. The room blurred. For a moment, she was not standing in a Mafia library with guns behind the walls. She was a little girl with her mother's hand around hers. Run. Do not look back. Live. Luca's voice came quietly. She knew. Elena looked at him. His face had changed. The control had cracked enough for something raw to show through. My mother trusted you, Elena said. He shook his head once. She shouldn't have, but she did. She was wrong. Elena stepped closer to the table, letter still in hand. She said you tried to save me. Luca's jaw hardened. I failed. She said you were betrayed too. His eyes flashed. Do not turn me into something better than I am because a dead woman wanted to comfort her daughter. The sharpness of his voice cut through the air. Rosa flinched. Elena did not. She understood suddenly that Luca did not fear accusation. He knew how to live beneath hatred. Forgiveness was what frightened him. Elena folded the letter carefully, though her hands still shook. Box 317, she said. Luca's expression closed. No. A laugh broke from her. Small. Disbelieving. You did not just say no. The old Meridian station has been closed for 9 years. So? So it sits on the border between Sands territory and federal surveillance zones. Half the cameras are dead. The tunnels below it connect to service lines, old storage vaults, abandoned platforms. It is impossible to secure completely. My mother left me a key. Your mother left you a war. She left me the weapon to end one. Luca's eyes sharpened. And Victor knows that now. Elena froze. What? Luca picked up the phone from the table and replayed the cemetery video without sound. He paused it at the moment Victor opened the locket. Then he zoomed in. Inside the locket was not a photograph. It was empty. No, not empty. There was a tiny indentation in the velvet lining, the shape of a key. Elena looked down at the brass key in her palm. Her mother had hidden it elsewhere. Victor had found the locket expecting the key to be inside. He knew about box 317, or suspected enough. He was searching her grave, Elena whispered. Yes. He didn't come for me first because he needed the key, and now he knows you may have it. Her fist closed around the brass hard enough to hurt. Then we go before he gets there. We wait until my men... No. Luca's gaze darkened. Elena stepped around the table. This time she crossed the border between them. You wanted me to remember who I am? She said. Fine. I remember. I am Serafina's daughter. She spent her life hiding me from Victor. She died carrying secrets that could destroy him. I will not sit in your beautiful prison while men decide whether I am brave enough to open a box. Luca stared down at her. The air between them tightened. Rosa whispered, Isabella. Elena did not look away from Luca. She trusted you once, Elena said. I won't do that yet, but I will use you. Something dangerous lit in his eyes. Not anger. Respect. Maybe both. Use me how? Get me into Meridian Station. No. Then I'll go without you. You won't make it 10 blocks. Then you should move quickly. His jaw flexed. For one long moment neither spoke. Then Luca turned his head slightly. Matteo. The door opened immediately. As if Matteo had been waiting with his ear to the wood. Of course he had. Yes, boss. Prepare 2 teams. Silent entry. No sirens. No family flags. Civilian vehicles, only. I want drones overhead and eyes in every building facing the station. Matteo's gaze flicked to Elena, then back to Luca. You're going? Luca's mouth hardened. We're going. Matteo did not like that. Neither did Rosa. Elena saw it in both their faces. You're barely standing, Rosa said. Luca picked up his gun from the table. Then I'll sit between killing people. Rosa muttered something in Italian that sounded like a curse and a prayer having an argument. Elena moved toward the door. Luca caught her wrist. The contact sent a shock through her, not because it was hard, because it was careful. She looked down at his hand. He released her immediately. Not like that, he said. What? He reached into the drawer again and removed a small black device no larger than a coin. A tracker. No. A panic signal. No. Elena. I said no. His eyes sharpened. Victor's men will not ask for your consent. And you think that gives you permission not to? The words hit. Luca went completely still. Matteo looked down. Rosa's expression softened with painful approval. For a second, Luca said nothing. Then he placed the device on the table between them. Take it or don't. Elena stared at it. A choice. Small. Maybe manipulative. Maybe real. She picked it up and shoved it into her pocket. Luca's gaze remained unreadable. Thank you, he said. The words were so unexpected she almost missed them. The convoy this time did not look like a convoy. No black SUVs. No obvious power. Just a gray sedan, an old delivery van, 2 motorcycles, and a maintenance truck moving separately through the city as dusk slid between the buildings. Elena sat in the passenger seat of the sedan. Luca drove. That was not allowed, according to everyone, which apparently meant nothing. He wore a dark coat, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near his ribs whenever he thought she wasn't looking. She noticed every time. You should not be driving, she said. You've mentioned. I'll mention it again when you pass out and kill us both. I don't pass out. You bleed, you tear stitches, you ignore medical instructions, and you make terrible emotional decisions. Passing out would be the least dramatic thing about you. His eyes flicked to her. The city lights moved across his face. You read your mother's letter and became crueler. I became honest. No. His voice was low. You became awake. Elena looked out the window. Rain had returned in a fine mist, turning streetlights into halos. The city looked softer from behind glass. Was your brother kind? She asked suddenly. Luca's hand tightened on the wheel. For a moment, she thought he would not answer. Then he said, To me. That wasn't my question. His eyes stayed on the road. Nico was kind when he could afford it. In our world, kindness had to be hidden, or someone would use it against you. Elena thought of her mother, her secret lawyer, her hidden key, her quiet war. Did you love him? Yes. The answer was immediate, clean, painful. Do you hate me because he died? This time, Luca looked at her. Only for a second. Enough. No. Did you? His throat moved. When I was 17, yes. Elena's chest tightened. Luca looked back at the road. I hated you because hating a dead girl was easier than hating my brother for choosing you, my father for making us weapons, and myself for being alive. Elena stared at him. And now? A muscle moved in his jaw. Now you're not dead. The answer was not enough. It was too much. She looked away first. Meridian Station rose out of the rain like a monument to abandonment. Once, it had been beautiful. Arched windows, stone columns, a clock tower stopped at 217. Now plywood covered half the entrances. Graffiti crawled along the lower walls. The old tracks behind it disappeared into weeds and black water. The sedan stopped 2 blocks away. Luca killed the headlights. Matteo's voice came through the earpiece Luca had forced Elena to wear only after she agreed to put it in herself. North entrance clear. Heat signatures on the 2nd floor. Likely homeless. No weapons visible. 2 Sands vehicles circling east. Luca looked at Elena. Last chance. She opened the door. Try to keep up. For the first time, Luca smiled. Not fully. Not safely. But enough to make something in her chest betray her. They entered through a maintenance corridor beneath the west arch. The smell hit first dust, rust, old rainwater, and rot. Luca moved ahead despite his injury, gun low, body angled to shield her without blocking her path. Elena noticed. She hated that too. Box 317 was not in the main hall. Her mother had written a number, but not a location. For 20 minutes, they moved through abandoned offices and corridors while Matteo's team swept ahead and behind them. Elena searched old signage with a flashlight, nerves tightening with every distant creak. Then she saw it. A faded brass plaque near a stairwell. Private deposit vaults. Her heart began to pound. Here. Luca stepped in front of her before descending. She grabbed his coat. He looked back. Let me see what my mother left me, she said. His kaza held hers. Then he moved aside. Not behind her. Beside her. The vault room was underground. Cold. Windowless. Rows of old metal boxes lined the walls, many rusted, some torn open long ago. Elena moved down the row. Her breath shook. The brass key slid into the lock. For one terrible second, nothing happened. Then it turned. The box opened with a soft metallic groan. Inside was a black ledger, 3 flash drives sealed in plastic, and a small velvet. Elena reached for the ledger. A sound came from behind them. A slow clap. Once. Twice. 3 times. Luca turned instantly, gun raised. At the entrance of the vault stood a man in a charcoal suit, silver hair combed back, leather gloves folded around the handle of a black umbrella. Victor Sands looked older than in the video. Sharper too. Not handsome. Powerful. His eyes moved past Luca and settled on Elena with terrifying tenderness. My daughter, he said softly. Luca stepped in front of her. Victor smiled. Still choosing for her, Moretti? Elena's hand tightened around the ledger. Victor's gaze lowered to it, then back to her face. I have waited 12 years to see you again. Elena's voice came out cold. I wish I could say the same. Victor's smile widened, almost proud. Serafina's fire. At her mother's name, Luca's gun lifted an inch higher. Victor ignored it. You have something that belongs to me. Elena held the ledger against her chest. My mother disagreed. Your mother, Victor said, was a frightened woman who filled your head with bedtime monsters because she could not accept that I loved her. The words struck exactly where the letter had warned they would. Truth twisted into a leash. Elena took a slow breath. She said you would say that. For the first time, Victor's expression changed. Only for a second. But Elena saw it. Luca saw it too. She wrote to you, Victor said. Not a question. Elena lifted her chin. She told me enough. Victor's eyes cooled. No, Isabella. She told you what made her innocent. Luca's voice cut through the room. Take one more step and you die here. Victor looked at him like a bored king looking at a dog. You always did mistake violence for authority. And you always mistook patience for immortality. Victor smiled faintly. Then he looked at Elena again. Ask him, he said. Elena did not move. Victor's voice softened. Ask Luca Moretti why he was really at your house the night it burned. The vault seemed to shrink around them. Luca went still. Too still. Elena's eyes shifted to him. Luca? His face gave nothing away, but his silence did. Victor's smile returned. There it is, he whispered. The part Serafina didn't know. Elena stepped back from Luca. Not much. Enough. What is he talking about? Luca's jaw tightened. Elena. Victor laughed softly. So careful with her now. So noble. So wounded. His eyes gleamed. Tell her, boy. Tell her what your father sent you to steal. Elena's pulse hammered. The ledger felt suddenly heavy in her arms. Luca did not look at Victor. He looked at her. I was sent to find evidence your mother had hidden. Her breath caught. The evidence in this box. No. His voice was low. The first copy. Victor's eyes shone with pleasure. Elena felt cold spread through her chest. You knew about the evidence before the massacre. I knew my father wanted something from the De Luca house. That is not what I asked. Luca's face tightened with pain that had nothing to do with bullets. Yes. The word hit harder than she expected. Elena stared at him. You didn't come as a hostage. I did, but you also came as a thief. Yes. Victor tilted his head. And what happened after you found Serafina's files, Luca? Luca's eyes darkened. Elena's voice became barely audible. What happened? Luca looked like he would rather let the bullet wounds open than answer. I gave them to my father. The vault went silent. Elena's fingers loosened around the ledger. Luca stepped toward her. Elena. Don't. He stopped instantly. Victor's smile was almost gentle now. Your mother's first escape failed because of him. Elena shook her head once, but not in denial. In warning. To herself. To him. To the part of her that had begun to soften. Luca's voice roughened. I didn't know what the files were. But you stole them. Yes. And my mother was exposed. His silence cut her open. Victor spoke softly. Serafina planned to run with you 2 days before the peace dinner. She had papers, money, names. She might have made it. He sighed. But Luca brought the files to his father. His father brought them to mine. And then everyone knew she had betrayed them. Elena looked at Luca. For a moment she saw every version of him at once. The wounded man on the gurney. The boy in the photograph. The monster guarding her door. The thief who had helped doom her mother. Is it true? She whispered. Luca's eyes held hers. Yes. No excuse. No denial. Just the truth, arriving too late to save anything. Elena stepped back. This time farther. Luca's face changed, as if she had struck him somewhere no one could see. Victor extended one gloved hand. Come with me, Isabella. Luca's gun snapped toward him. Do not. Victor ignored him. You do not have to forgive me tonight. You do not have to trust me. But you deserve truth, not the cage of a guilty man trying to rewrite his sins as protection. Elena looked at the hand. Then at Luca. His eyes burned into hers. Not commanding now. Note dominant. Pleading without asking. Elena, he said quietly. If you go with him, he will bury you inside his world and call it love. And what would you call what you're doing? The question landed between them like a gunshot. Luca's mouth parted slightly. No answer came. Victor smiled. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the vault. Gunfire exploded from the hallway. Elena dropped to the floor as Luca lunged toward her, his body covering hers just before bullets tore through the metal boxes behind them. Victor's men shouted. Matteo's voice roared through the earpiece. Ambush. South tunnel. Boss, get her out now. Luca grabbed Elena with one arm and fired into the dark with the other. She clutched the ledger and flash drives against her chest, heart tearing itself apart. Victor's voice came through the chaos, calm and close. Run, Isabella. Ask yourself why Luca Moretti keeps arriving just in time for your life to burn. A hand closed around Elena's ankle. She kicked hard and screamed. Luca spun, shot the man once, then pulled her upright. Pain flashed across his face. Blood had spread beneath his coat. He was bleeding again. Because of her. Because of himself. Because everything between them was made of old fire and fresh wounds. This way, Luca shouted. He dragged her through a side passage as bullets sparked against stone. Elena ran. Not because she trusted him. Not because she forgave him. Because behind them, Victor Sands was laughing in the dark. They burst into an abandoned service tunnel beneath the station. Water splashed around their feet. Matteo appeared from the left with 2 men, firing back toward the vault. "Car is compromised," Matteo snapped. "We go through the maintenance exit." Luca shoved the ledger into Matteo's hands. "No," Elena said, grabbing it back. "This stays with me." Matteo looked at Luca. Luca looked at Elena. For a second, even in the middle of gunfire, the choice hung between them. Then Luca nodded. With her. They ran through the tunnel. Behind them, an explosion shook the station. Dust rained from the ceiling. Elena stumbled. Luca caught her. His hand was warm with blood. She looked down at it, then up at him. The betrayal was still there. The rage. The truth. But so was the fact that he had put his body over hers in the dark without thinking. She hated him for making both things real. At the maintenance exit, Matteo forced open a rusted gate. Rain rushed in, cold and violent. A van waited beyond the alley, engine running. Elena climbed inside first. Luca followed, then collapsed against the opposite seat, one hand pressed to his ribs. This time, he could not hide the pain. His face had gone gray. Elena stared at the blood spreading beneath his fingers. Nurse instinct surged again. She hated it. She moved anyway. "Move your hand." He laughed once, breathless and bitter. Still giving orders? Still bleeding. He looked at her then. In the dim van light, with rain streaking the windows and gunfire fading behind them, Luca Moretti looked less like a king and more like a boy, who had spent 12 years becoming a monster because grief had nowhere else to go. "Elena," he said. "No. You need to know. I know enough." His eyes closed for half a second. When they opened, the control was back, but cracked. "Your mother's first files were not what Victor wanted." Elena's hands paused over his wound. "What?" Luca swallowed hard. "The files I stole exposed Victor's accounts, yes. But there was something else, a list." "What list?" He looked toward the ledger in her lap. The names of children Victor had hidden under false identities. Elena went still. Luca's voice dropped. "You were not the only one." The van seemed to tilt. Elena stared at him. "What are you saying?" Luca's breathing turned shallow. "I'm saying Victor didn't want you because you were his daughter." Rain hammered the roof. Matteo cursed from the front seat, telling the driver to move faster. Luca's eyes locked on Elena's. "He wanted you because your bloodline proves what he built." Elena's throat closed. "What did he build?" Luca tried to answer. Then his body finally betrayed him. His head fell back against the seat, blood soaking through Elena's hands as she pressed down on the wound. "Luca." His eyes
Look
flooded,
at her.
but he forced out one final whisper
Is
before
this
darkness
her?
took him. Top of form,
She's why I'm
bottom
here.
of form.
Oh,
Elena's
God, I
hands
never
were
knew.
buried in Luca Moretti's blood when the van blew through a red light. The city streaked past in fractured pieces of neon, rain, and headlights. Matteo shouted into his phone from the front seat.
Stay
The
down,
driver
Elena.
swerved
I've
hard,
got you.
tires screaming
They're getting
against wet
closer.
asphalt.
Not
Somewhere
on my
behind
watch.
them,
Hold
another
on.
engine roared too close.
The ledger!
But Elena
I've got
heard
it.
only the
Move.
weak, uneven rhythm of Luca's breathing. "Stay with me," she snapped. Luca did not move. His head rested against the seat, face drained of color, lashes dark against his skin. The man who had stood like a weapon in every room now looked terrifyingly mortal beneath her hands. Blood seeped hot between her fingers. Too much. Far too much. "Matteo," she shouted. "I need pressure dressings, saline, a trauma kit, anything." Matteo twisted around, his face tightening when he saw Luca. For the first time, real fear broke through the soldier's control. "There's a kit under the seat." Elena kicked it open and dragged the black case into her lap. Her hands moved automatically despite the shaking. Gauze, tape, hemostatic dressing, gloves she didn't have time to put on. The van jolted as something slammed into them from behind. Elena fell forward, catching herself against Luca's chest. His eyes opened a fraction. "Don't look so worried," he breathed. Rage and relief hit her at once. "You are not allowed to flirt while actively bleeding out." His mouth moved faintly. "Wasn't flirting." "Good, because you're terrible at it." His gaze tried to focus on her. "Liar." The word came out weaker this time. Elena pressed the dressing hard into the wound. Luca's entire body tensed. "Good." Pain meant he was still here. "Keep your eyes open," she ordered. "Talk to me." His breath hitched. "About what?" "Anything." His eyes flickered toward the ledger clutched beside her knee. "Children." Elena's stomach dropped. "No, not that. Stay awake. You need to know. I need you alive first." His gaze burned through the haze of pain. "Victor's empire. He swallowed, his voice rough and broken. Not drugs, not guns. Those were covers. The van swerved again. Gunshots cracked behind them. Matteo yelled, "2 cars on us." Elena did not look away from Luca. What was he covering? Luca's hand found her wrist. Weak, still possessive enough to stop her breath. Bloodlines, he whispered. Children from powerful families, hidden, replaced, sold into loyalty before they knew their own names. The words entered Elena slowly. Then all at once, her hand almost slipped. No. Luca's fingers tightened. You were supposed to be the proof. The first. Elena felt the van, the rain, the chase, the whole city tilt around her. I was a child. Yes. And the others? His eyes darkened. Some became soldiers. Some became heirs. Some became ghosts. Before Elena could ask more, the rear window exploded. Glass sprayed across the van. Matteo shoved himself between the front seats and fired through the shattered back window. The muzzle flash lit the inside of the van in brutal bursts. Luca, pale and bleeding, Elena covered in red, the black ledger open on the floor with pages trembling in the wind. Get down, Matteo roared. Elena threw herself over Luca's body as bullets tore through the side panel. For one terrifying second, she understood what Luca had done in the vault. Not as a romantic gesture, not as dominance, as instinct. A body becoming a shield before thought could interfere. The van lurched left, then dropped sharply. Elena's stomach rose. They were going underground. The driver took them into a service tunnel beneath the city, lights flashing overhead in sick yellow streaks. The pursuing cars followed. Their engines howled in the enclosed space like animals. Matteo spoke into his comms. Tunnel route compromised. I need a block at exit 6, now. Elena reached for Luca's pulse. Weak. Too fast. You need surgery. Luca's eyes barely opened. You offering? I'm threatening. Terrifying nurse. You have no idea. A shadow crossed the van window. One of Victor's cars pulled alongside them inside the tunnel. Elena saw the passenger raise a gun. She didn't think. She grabbed the trauma case and hurled it at the window just as Matteo fired. The case hit the glass. Matteo's bullet shattered the attacker's windshield. The other car swerved, struck the tunnel wall, and spun out in a shriek of metal. Matteo looked back at Elena. For half a second, surprise cut through the chaos. Then approval. Noted, he said. Elena grabbed the remaining gauze with bloody hands. Stop admiring me and stop them. Another vehicle rammed them from the back. This time, the van fishtailed. The driver cursed. Matteo slammed one hand against the roof. Brace! The van burst out of the tunnel into a storm-drenched industrial district. Warehouses rose around them like dead giants. Floodlights cut through rain. The road ahead narrowed between shipping containers. Then headlights appeared from the opposite direction. Victor's men had boxed them in. The van screeched to a halt. For one heartbeat, everything stopped. Rain hammered the roof. Luca breathed shallowly beneath Elena's hands. Matteo checked his ammunition. The driver whispered a prayer. Then Matteo looked back at Elena. Can you move him? No. Can he shoot? Elena looked at Luca. His eyes were half closed. He can barely insult me. Luca's mouth twitched. Matteo exhaled. Then we hold. Doors opened outside. Men stepped into the rain from both sides of the road. Dark coats, rifles, no masks now. Victor no longer needed to hide. A voice echoed through a speaker from the front vehicle. Isabella de Luca. Elena's blood went cold. Luca's eyes opened. Not fully. Enough. His voice was a rasp. Don't answer. The speaker crackled again. Come out with the ledger and the wounded Moretti lives. Elena's hands tightened over Luca's wound. Matteo muttered. He's lying. I know, Elena whispered. But Victor's voice continued, smooth and patient. You are a nurse, aren't you? You know how much blood he has lost. You know how little time remains. How many men must die tonight because Luca Moretti cannot stop choosing badly? Luca tried to sit up. Elena pushed him down hard. Move and I sedate you with whatever I find in this van. His eyes flicked to hers. Even dying, he almost smiled. Victor's voice softened. Isabella, your mother tried to protect you from a world you were born to rule. Luca wants to protect you from his guilt. I am the only man offering you truth. Elena reached slowly for the ledger. Luca's hand closed over hers. No. His voice was barely there. But the fear in it was real. Not for himself. For here. Elena looked down at him. Blood had reached his collar. His breathing was turning shallow and uneven. His skin was too cold beneath her fingers. He was running out of time. And Victor knew it. That was the trap. Grief made traps look like doors. Love, maybe, made them look like sacrifice. Elena took Luca's hand off hers gently. His eyes sharpened with panic. Elena. She leaned closer. You said my mother left me a war. His breath trembled. Yes. Then stop trying to fight it for me. She picked up the ledger, opened the van door, and stepped into the rain. Every gun in the street shifted toward her. Matteo cursed behind her but did not shoot. Luca shouted her name. It tore out of him like pain. Elena walked forward with blood on her hands and her mother's secrets against her chest. Rain soaked her hair, her clothes, her skin. But she did not lower her head. She did not run. She did not hide behind Luca's name, or her mother's ghost, or the false life she had built out of fear. For the first time in 12 years, Isabella De Luca stepped into the open. Victor stood beneath a black umbrella near the lead car. He looked almost pleased, almost proud. My daughter, he said. Elena stopped 10 feet away. I'm not your daughter. His smile did not fade. Blood says otherwise. My mother says otherwise. Something cold passed through his eyes. Then he glanced toward the van. Luca is dying. Yes. And still you bring me a book instead of begging for his life. Elena looked down at the ledger. Then back at Victor. You taught me quickly. His smile deepened. There she is. The words made her skin crawl. Victor extended one gloved hand. The ledger. Elena held it tighter. First, Luca gets a doctor. Victor sighed. You are still thinking like a nurse. And you are still thinking I came to bargain. His eyes narrowed. Elena lifted the ledger high enough for every man in the rain to see. Then she turned it sideways and let the first page fall open. Victor's expression changed. Not much. Enough. Elena had seen Luca do the same thing when someone touched a wound. She smiled without warmth. You don't want this damaged. Victor's voice lowered. Be careful. There are names in here, aren't there? Children, judges, senators, police captains, families who think their secrets died years ago. Victor's hand lowered slowly. Elena ripped out one page. The sound was small, but every man heard it. Victor's face went still. Behind her the van door shifted. Luca was watching. Elena felt it. She did not turn. You will call off your men, she said. You will let Luca leave. You will let Matteo take him to a surgeon. Victor's smile returned, but now there was poison beneath it. And you? I stay. From the van, Luca's voice roared through the rain. No. The sound nearly broke her. Nearly. Victor looked past her, amused. Still dramatic, that one. Elena ripped the page halfway down. Victor's amusement vanished. Stop. Call them off. You are making a mistake. No, she said. I'm making a choice. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then he lifted one hand. His men lowered their weapons. Not fully. Enough. Let the Moretti van pass, Victor ordered. Matteo appeared at the van door, gun raised, face carved from fury. Elena, get back in. She did not look at him. Take him. No. Take him, Matteo. You think he'll forgive me if I leave you? Elena's throat tightened. I think he'll be alive enough to hate you. Matteo's jaw clenched. Inside the van, Luca tried to rise again, and failed. Elena, his voice broke on her name. She closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, she looked only at Victor. Move the cars. Victor nodded. The blockade is split. The van engine started. As it rolled past, Luca's face appeared in the shattered side window. Pale, bloodied, furious, terrified. Their eyes met through rain and broken glass. Elena mouthed one word. Live. The van disappeared into the storm, and something inside her went with it. Victor watched her, watching him leave. Then he smiled. You have your mother's courage. Elena looked at him. And your cruelty. For the first time, Victor laughed. Not loudly. Not kindly. Good. The moment the van vanished, Victor's men moved in. 2 grabbed Elena's arms. She did not fight. Not yet. One took the ledger from her hands. Another searched her pockets and found the flash drives and the panic signal Luca had given her. Victor lifted the tiny black device between 2 fingers. How touching, he said. He gave you a button. Elena said nothing. Victor dropped it onto the wet pavement and crushed it beneath his shoe. Then he leaned close. But not the only one, I imagine. A chill moved through her. He knew. Or guessed. Either way, his smile said the game had only begun. "Bring her," he ordered. They forced Elena into the back of his car. The leather smelled expensive and cold. Victor sat beside her, umbrella folded neatly between them. Across from her sat a young woman in a gray suit, no older than 30, face blank, eyes hollow. Elena stared at her. There was something familiar in the shape of her mouth. The woman looked away first. Victor noticed. "Clara was found in Boston at age 6, he said pleasantly. "Raised under a different name. Now she handles my financial channels." Clara did not react. Elena's pulse quickened. "Ah, stolen, chilled. One of the others." Victor continued as the car began to move. "There are many like her. Brilliant. Lost. Reclaimed. Broken," Elena said. Victor's eyes moved to her. Useful. Her stomach turned. He looked out at the wet streets. Children are the purest form of legacy. Governments collapse. Money disappears. Men betray. But blood placed correctly can rule for generations. "You're insane." "No," Victor said softly. "I am patient." The car turned through a gate Elena did not recognize. Beyond it rose a hotel, old and elegant, its windows glowing gold against the storm. Men in suits waited beneath the entrance canopy. No guests, no staff. Just Victor's world, hidden inside luxury. As Elena was led inside, she counted exits. 2 front doors. 1 service hallway. 4 armed men in the lobby. Cameras in the corners. Clara walking behind her with eyes fixed on the floor. Victor noticed Elena watching everything. "You do not need to escape," he said. "I disagree. You need to understand." They took her to the top floor. A ballroom. At least it had once been a ballroom. Now the chandeliers were dimmed. The mirrors were covered in black fabric. A long table stretched down the center of the room, covered with files, photographs, passports, medical records, birth certificates. Children's faces stared up from every surface. Elena stopped breathing. Some photographs were old and faded. Some looked recent. Some children smiled in school uniforms. Some stared blankly at cameras. Some were babies wrapped in hospital blankets. Dozens. No. Hundreds. Victor walked past them like a collector admiring art. "This," he said, "is what your mother tried to destroy." Elena's hands curled into fists. "This is trafficking. This is architecture. This is evil." Victor turned. His face remained calm. Evil is a word weak people use when they lack imagination. Elena looked down at the nearest file. "Ah boy. Born to a judge's mistress. Removed at 2 weeks old. Placed with a military family. Recruited at 19. Elena's vision blurred with rage. "You stole their lives. I gave them purpose. You stole their names. I protected them from ordinary weakness." Her voice shook. "You are a monster." Victor stepped closer. "And yet you saved Luca Moretti by giving yourself to me." His eyes sharpened. "Tell me, Isabella, what is the difference between sacrifice and strategy?" Elena said nothing. Victor smiled. "The winner decides." A phone rang. One of Victor's men answered, listened, then went pale. Victor turned his head slightly. "What?" The man swallowed. The Moretti van reached the clinic. Elena closed her eyes briefly. Luca was alive. "For now," the man continued, voice tighter. "But Moretti's men hit 3 of our warehouses within the last 5 minutes." Victor's expression darkened. Another phone rang. Then another. The ballroom shifted with sudden tension. A second man spoke quickly. "Docks are burning." A third. "Police scanners are dead across the East District." A fourth. "Sir, our accounts in Geneva just locked." Victor's gaze returned slowly to Elena. For the first time, there was no smile. Elena's heart began to pound. Luca. Bleeding, half dead, barely conscious, Luca had still managed to go to war. Victor stepped closer. "What did you do?" Elena looked up at him and smiled faintly. "I stayed." The windows exploded inward. The ballroom erupted into glass, rain, and gunfire. Elena dropped to the floor as men shouted around her. Smoke flooded the room. The chandeliers swung violently overhead. Victor's guards fired toward the broken windows, but shadows were already moving through the storm. Not police. Not soldiers. Moretti men. Matteo calmed through the smoke like vengeance in a black coat, firing with cold precision. "Elena!" he shouted. She crawled beneath the long table as bullets tore through files above her. Papers rained down, birth certificates, photographs, stolen names, scattering like ghosts set loose. Victor grabbed her ankle. She kicked him hard in the face. He grunted, releasing her. Clara appeared suddenly beside Elena beneath the table. For one breath they stared at each other. Clara's face trembled. Then she shoved a small knife into Elena's hand. "Run left," Clara whispered. "Service door behind the mirror." Elena stared at her. "Come with me." Clara shook her head. Her eyes were wet now. "I don't know how." The words broke something in Elena. Before she could answer, Clara turned and crawled the other way, deliberately knocking over a stack of files to draw a guard's attention. A gunshot cracked. Clara fell. Elena screamed. Matteo reached her a second later, dragging her up from beneath the table. "No," Elena fought him. "Clara, she's gone." "No." "Elena, move." Victor rose through the smoke with blood at his mouth and murder in his eyes. For a moment, all elegance vanished. The father mask, the patient voice, the smooth power. What remained was the thing beneath. "Bring her to me," he roared. Matteo shoved Elena through the service door Clara had revealed behind the covered mirror. They ran down a narrow corridor as the ballroom burned behind them. "Where's Luca?" Elena gasped. "Alive." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you get while people are shooting at us." They burst into a stairwell. 2 sandsmen came up from below. Matteo pushed Elena behind him and fired twice. The men fell. Elena's ears rang. They kept moving. Down one flight. Then another. Smoke began filling the stairwell. The building alarm screamed. At the 3rd-floor landing, the door burst open. A man lunged for Elena. She drove Clara's knife into his thigh. He screamed. Matteo slammed him into the wall and finished the fight with brutal efficiency. Then he looked at the knife in Elena's bloody hand. "Remind me never to make you angry." "I'm always angry now." "Good, hold on to that." They reached the ground floor, but the lobby was chaos. Gunfire near the front doors. Smoke pouring from the ballroom vents. Sprinklers raining down over marble floors. A black car crashed through the hotel entrance. Elena flinched as glass sprayed across the lobby. The rear door opened. Luca stepped out. For a second, everything slowed. He should have been unconscious. He should have been on an operating table. He should not have been standing beneath shattered glass with a white bandage visible beneath his open black coat, one hand braced against the car, the other holding a gun. His face was ghost pale. His eyes were alive with fury. Elena. Her name left him like a vow. She ran to him before she could tell herself not to. Luca caught her with one arm, and for half a second, the world narrowed to rain, smoke, blood, and the violent relief of his body still warm against hers. Then he pulled back just enough to look at her face. His hand touched her cheek. "Careful." Disbelieving. "You stayed," he said. "You came back," she whispered. His eyes burned. "I never left." A shot cracked. Luca turned, pulling her behind him as the bullet struck the car. Matteo shouted from across the lobby. "We have to go." But Victor appeared at the top of the grand staircase. Blood ran from his mouth. His suit was torn. Smoke curled behind him like a throne burning. In one hand, he held a gun. In the other, the ledger. Elena went still. Victor smiled through the blood. "Looking for this?" Luca raised his weapon. Victor pressed his gun to the ledger. "One bullet," he called, "and every name burns with me." Elena stepped out from behind Luca. "Elena," Luca warned. She kept walking. Victor watched her descend into the open space between them. "My brave girl," he said, still thinking the book matters most. "It doesn't." Victor's smile faltered. Elena lifted her blood-covered hand. Clutched between her fingers was one of the flash drives. Victor's eyes sharpened. Then Elena looked toward the shattered front doors. Outside, beyond the rain, red and blue lights began to bloom. Not close enough yet, but coming. Sirens rose across the city. Luca's men had not just attacked warehouses. They had released something. Victor understood at the same time Elena did. The files were already out. The ledger was no longer a weapon. It was evidence. Victor's face twisted. "You stupid girl." "No," Elena said. "Your daughter would have protected your empire." She stepped closer. "My mother's daughter burned it." Victor raised his gun. Luca fired first. The shot hit Victor in the shoulder, spinning him backward against the staircase railing. The ledger fell from his hand, pages scattering into the wet marble below. Victor did not fall. He laughed. Then he lifted a small black remote from inside his torn jacket. Matteo's face changed. Bomb! Luca grabbed Elena and threw her behind the overturned car as Victor pressed the button. The world became fire. Heat slammed through the lobby. The ceiling split. Glass rained down like knives. Elena hit the floor beneath Luca's body, his arms locked around her head, shielding her from the blast with the last strength he had. For several seconds there was no sound. Only white. Only heat. Only the crush of Luca's weight and the taste of smoke in her mouth. Then sound returned violently. Sprinklers. Alarms. Screams. Sirens. Elena coughed, choking on dust. Luca? No answer. Panic ripped through her. Luca. He was still over her, unmoving. His back was covered in glass and blood. She shoved at him, desperate, but he was too heavy. Matteo appeared through the smoke, face bleeding, and helped pull Luca aside. Elena scrambled up and pressed both hands to Luca's chest. Luca, open your eyes. Nothing. No. Her voice broke. No, no, no. She checked his pulse. There. Faint. Terrifyingly faint. Matteo cursed in Italian. Elena ripped open Luca's coat. Blood everywhere. Old wound reopened. New cuts. Possible internal trauma. Shock setting in. Her mind snapped into nurse mode because grief would kill him faster than blood loss. I need pressure here. Keep his airway open. Don't move his spine. Get me cloth, gauze, anything clean. Matteo obeyed without argument. Men shouted around them. Police lights flashed through smoke. Somewhere above, the building groaned. Elena leaned over Luca, pressing down on the worst wound. You don't get to do this, she said, tears cutting lines through ash on her face. You don't get to make me hate you, save me, betray me, protect me, and then die before I decide what you are. His lashes did not move. She pressed harder. Luca Moretti, open your damn eyes. A weak breath left him. Then another. His eyes opened barely. Dark. Unfocused. Still searching for her. Elena almost sobbed. There you are, she whispered. His lips moved. She leaned close. What? His voice was almost nothing. Did we win? Elena laughed through tears because she couldn't help it. You are impossible. His gaze drifted past her toward the burning staircase. Victor was gone. No body. No confirmed death. Just fire, smoke, and the echo of a man too patient to disappear easily. Luca saw her realize it. So did Matteo. The police sirens grew louder. The ballroom above burned. The hotel shook. And somewhere in the chaos, Victor Sands had vanished again. Luca's hand found Elena's wrist. Weak. Blood slick. Alive. Elena, he whispered. She looked down at him. His eyes held hers with the terrible clarity of a man standing on the edge of unconsciousness. This was only the first layer. Her heart stopped. What does that mean? Luca's breathing faltered. Matteo looked toward the doors, where federal agents were now storming through the smoke. Luca's fingers tightened once around Elena's wrist. The stolen children, he whispered. One of them is already inside the government. Then his eyes closed. And every camera in the burning lobby turned toward Elena. Top of form. Bottom of form. The first camera light hit Elena's face like a weapon. Then another. Then 20 more. Federal agents poured through the ruined hotel lobby in black tactical gear, shouting orders over the fire alarms. Moretti men dropped weapons or disappeared into smoke with practiced precision. Sansa's guards were dragged to the floor, cuffed, searched, stripped of power in front of the empire they had served. But every lens found Elena. Not Luca bleeding on the marble. Not Matteo standing with a gun still in his hand. Not the burning staircase where Victor Sands had vanished. Elena. The nurse in torn clothes. The dead heiress. The daughter of a monster. The woman holding one of the flash drives that had just set half the city on fire. Hands where I can see them, an agent shouted. Elena slowly lifted her hands. Luca's blood covered her palms. The flash drive gleamed between two fingers. A woman in a navy coat pushed past the tactical line, badge hanging at her neck, gray eyes sharp, hair pulled back tight enough to look painful. Isabella de Luca? Elena's throat closed. Every time someone said that name, another piece of the old life cracked open. She looked down at Luca. His eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. Matteo was pressing cloth against his wound, jaw clenched. Face pale with fear, he would rather die than show. The federal agent stepped closer. I need you to come with me. Elena looked up slowly. No. The agent blinked. Miss De Luca. My name is Elena Vale. Her voice came out rough but steady. "And he needs a trauma surgeon now. We have medical personnel coming." "Coming" is not here. The agent's face hardened. "You are a material witness in a federal operation involving organized crime, trafficking, political corruption, and multiple homicides. You are coming with us." Elena stepped between the agent and Luca. She did not think. She simply moved, just as Luca had moved in front of her, just as her mother had moved with a knife in her hand. "No," Elena said again. A strange silence widened around her. The agent lowered her voice. "You don't understand the danger you're in." Elena laughed once. It sounded nothing like humor. "I was dragged out of my apartment by men trying to kill me. I watched my mother's grave get violated on video. I stood in front of Victor Sands while he called stolen children architecture. I think I understand danger better than your badge understands me." The woman's jaw tightened. Matteo looked up at Elena from the floor. For the first time, he looked not like a soldier guarding Luca's property. He looked like a man seeing a leader arrive. Elena turned toward the nearest federal medic rushing through the smoke. "You?" she snapped. "Tourniquet kit, pressure dressing. He has reopened abdominal trauma, possible internal bleeding, blood loss, shock. Move." The medic froze for half a second at the command in her voice, then obeyed. Elena dropped to her knees beside Luca and took over with bloody hands. The world narrowed. Pressure, breathing, pulse, airway, blood. She became a nurse again, because nursing was the first power she had ever earned honestly. Before names, before bloodlines, before war, before men with guns and fathers who thought children were property. She kept Luca alive because that was what she did. She kept people alive, even when they were criminals, even when they broke her heart before she had decided whether they owned any piece of it. Luca's pulse fluttered beneath her fingers. "Stay with me," she whispered. His lashes trembled, barely. "Elena," Matteo said quietly. She looked up. The federal agent was staring at her with a different expression now. Not softer, more careful. "Miss Vale," the agent said. "My name is Agent Carolyn Pierce. I led the task force against Victor Sands for 6 years. The files you released tonight triggered arrests in 4 states and 3 countries. But Luca is right. This is only the first layer." Elena's hands paused for a fraction of a second. "The government." Pierce's face gave nothing away. "We believe Sands placed children in positions where blood, blackmail, and loyalty could eventually compromise
institutions. Is this her?
One of those children may now be inside federal enforcement."
Oh God, I never knew.
Matteo cursed under his breath. Elena looked down at Luca. His warning had not been fever. It had been strategy. Even bleeding out, he had still seen the next battlefield. Pierce continued.
"Stay
"Which
down,
means
Elena.
not everyone
I've got
wearing
you.
a badge tonight is
They're
safe."
getting closer!
The lobby suddenly felt
Not on my
too bright,
watch. Hold
too
on.
crowded, too
The
exposed.
ledger!
I've got
Elena
it.
looked at the
Move!
agents, the cameras, the medics, the firefighters, the men shouting into radios. Any one of them. Victor's empire was not a building. It was a bloodline threaded through systems, a machine wearing human faces. Elena stood slowly. Her knees shook, but she did not let anyone see. "Then you don't get the flash drive." Agent Pierce's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" Elena held up the tiny device. "You said one of them may be inside federal enforcement. That means if I hand this to the wrong person, Victor wins from wherever he ran. You don't have the resources to protect that evidence." Elena looked around the destroyed lobby. At the scattered birth certificates, at the wet marble, at the blood, at the men who had been powerful 10 minutes ago and now lay cuffed on the floor. Then she looked at Luca. "No," she said, "but I know people who do." Matteo rose slowly. His face was streaked with ash and blood. Around the lobby, surviving Moretti men turned toward Elena. Not to Luca, to her. The shift was almost invisible. But everyone felt it. Agent Pierce felt it too. Elena slipped the flash drive into her fist. "Victor built his empire by stealing children and turning them into tools," she said. "My mother died hiding the proof. Luca bled for the chance to undo what he helped start. Clara died giving me a door." Her voice trembled once on Clara's name, then steadied. "I'm done being proof. I'm done being bait. I'm done being the girl everyone hides, hunts, trades, or protects without asking." She turned to Matteo. "Get Luca to a secure operating room, not a hospital Victor can touch, not a federal facility, unless Agent Pierce personally clears every name in that room." Matteo stared at her. Then he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The words moved through the lobby like a spark through dry grass. Elena turned back to Pierce. You want my cooperation? You get it. But not as a victim, not as a rescued heiress, not as Victor Sands's daughter. Pierce studied her for a long moment. And what are you offering to be? Elena looked down at her blood-covered hands. For 12 years, she had survived by becoming smaller. Quiet apartment. Quiet name. Quiet grief. Quiet fear. Now the city had finally learned she existed. So let it look. Let every camera see her. Let Victor watch from whatever hole he had crawled into. Elena lifted her chin. The woman who destroys him. A flashbulb exploded white against her face. This time, she did not flinch. 3 hours later, Luca was alive beneath surgical lights in a private clinic buried under a Moretti-owned research building. Elena watched from behind the glass. Rosa stood beside her with a rosary wrapped around one hand and a gun tucked beneath her cardigan like both objects belonged equally to God. Matteo came up behind them. Pierce confirmed the first wave, he said. Judges, dock officials, 2 senators' aides, 1 deputy police commissioner. Arrests are moving before Victor can warn them all. Elena did not look away from Luca. And the child inside the government? Unknown. That means Victor still has a knife near the throat of the investigation. Yes. Elena's reflection stared back from the glass. Clean clothes now. Hair pulled back. Face washed but not soft. Her mother's bracelet on her wrist. Luca's blood gone from her hands, though she could still feel it. Matteo held out a folder. What is this? Everything we recovered from the ballroom before the feds sealed it. Copies only. The originals are split between Pierce, our people, and 3 dead man servers Luca set up years ago. Elena turned then. He planned this. Parts of it. He knew one day Victor would surface. Matteo's gaze moved to Luca behind the glass. He spent 12 years preparing to kill the man who turned all our lives into consequences. Elena opened the folder. Faces looked back at her. Children. Teenagers. Adults. Some smiling. Some missing. Some with government IDs clipped beside their birth records. Stolen lives. Hidden blood. Unfinished graves. Elena's old fear stirred. Then something stronger stepped over it. Find them, she said. Matteo's eyes sharpened. All of them? All of them. That could start a war. Elena closed the folder. No, she said. It finishes one. Behind the glass, Luca's heart monitor continued its fragile rhythm. Hours later, near dawn, he woke. Elena was sitting beside his bed, the folder on her lap, the flash drive hidden somewhere only she knew. His eyes opened slowly. For a moment he looked confused by survival. Then he found her. Relief moved through his face before he could bury it. You're alive, he whispered. Elena leaned back in the chair. So are you. Barely. Try not to look proud. His mouth twitched, then pain stole the expression. You stayed. You keep sounding surprised. I'm difficult to stay near. That might be the first accurate thing you've said. His eyes moved over her face. Not possessive now. Not commanding. Almost reverent. What happened? Elena looked at the folder in her lap. Victor lost his first layer. Pierce has enough to start arrests. Matteo is mobilizing your network to identify the stolen children. Rosa threatened 3 doctors and a priest. You bled on expensive sheets. Luca blinked once. Then his gaze sharpened. You gave orders. Yes. To my men. Yes. And they listened? Elena held his casa. They needed someone standing. Something changed in Luca's face. Not offense. Not pride. Recognition. The kind men gave power when they finally understood it did not need permission. He swallowed with effort. Elena. No. She stood before he could continue. You don't get to make speeches yet. His eyes tracked her carefully. What do I get? She stepped closer to the bed. The machines hummed between them. You get the truth. His expression stilled. I still hate what you did, she said. I know. I don't forgive you for my mother. I know. I don't trust you enough to hand you my life. His throat moved. I know. Elena leaned closer, her voice lowering. But when Victor pointed a gun at me, you came back half dead. When the building exploded, you covered me with your body. When I ordered your men, they looked at me like you had already made space for me to become dangerous. Luca's eyes darkened. Elena, I am not yours. No. I am not your redemption. No. I am not the girl in the photograph anymore. His voice was rough. No. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, But I am going to war with you. The monitor beeped faster. Just slightly. Luca's mouth curved faintly. Not smug. Not victorious. something quieter, something that almost looked like hope. Then we win, he whispered. Elena picked up the folder and placed it on the bed beside him. No, she said. Then they learn what happens when stolen children come home. Outside the clinic windows, morning spread over the city, pale and merciless. On every news channel, Victor Sanz's empire began to bleed names. And somewhere in the city, Victor watched the woman he had tried to claim become the one thing he had never planned for. Not a daughter, not a victim, not a ghost. A queen with evidence in one hand and revenge in the other. Top of form, bottom of form. By sunrise, the city had learned to say Elena Vale's name with fear. Not Isabella de Luca. Not Victor Sanz's daughter. Not the dead heiress resurrected from a burned mansion and a hospital night shift. Elena Vale. The nurse who had walked into a war with blood on her hands and refused to kneel. For 3 days, the city did not sleep. News anchors spoke in tight, trembling voices. Judges vanished behind federal doors. Police captains were arrested before breakfast. Offshore accounts froze. Warehouses were raided. Old adoption files were reopened. Men who had spent decades believing they were untouchable suddenly discovered that secrets could bleed faster than bodies. Victor Sanz disappeared. Not dead. Not captured. A shadow again. But this time, he ran without his empire intact. Every name Elena released became another match dropped into the dark. And the stolen children began to surface. Some came willingly. Some denied everything. Some wept when shown the truth. Some turned violent because survival had taught them loyalty before it taught them freedom. Elena understood that more than she wanted to. She sat in a private room inside the Moretti estate, no longer locked away, no longer guarded like fragile glass. Files covered the long table in front of her. Photographs, birth certificates, medical records, false names beside real ones. Rosa brought tea she forgot to drink. Matteo came and went with updates. Agent Pierce called every 2 hours. And Luca Moretti, against every doctor's order and every reasonable human instinct, kept trying to leave bed. On the 4th morning, Elena found him standing in the hallway outside his room, one hand braced against the wall, pale as death and twice as stubborn. She stopped walking. He froze like a guilty child caught stealing. Elena stared at him. Luca stared back. No, she said. I didn't speak. You were about to do something stupid. His mouth curved faintly. You diagnose from across hallways now? With you it's easy. He leaned heavier on the wall, though he tried to hide it. She crossed the hallway, slipped his arm over her shoulders, and guided him back toward his room. He was warm, too warm. The sharp, clean scent of bandages mixed with cedar and pain. You are impossible, she muttered. You've said. I'll keep saying it until you become less impossible. That may take years. Elena looked up at him. For one quiet second, neither moved. The word years hung between them. Not like a promise. Not yet. Like a door neither one was brave enough to open first. Luca looked away before she did. When she got him back into bed, he lowered himself carefully, jaw tight from pain. Elena adjusted his pillows with more force than necessary. You enjoy ordering me around, he said. I enjoy keeping patients from dying after they dramatically throw themselves into explosions. His eyes softened. I would do it again. I know. Her voice dropped. That's what makes you dangerous. To you? Elena looked at him. Outside, daylight spread across the room in pale gold. For once, there was no rain, no gunfire, no smoke. Just a wounded man watching her like she was both punishment and mercy. To me, she admitted. Luca's expression changed, but he did not reach for her. He had learned that much. Some cages were made of arms. Some were made of good intentions. He kept his hands still on the blanket. Elena. She sat beside the bed. I went to my mother's grave this morning. His eyes sharpened. Without telling me, with Matteo. That does not make me feel better. It wasn't supposed to. A faint breath escaped him. Almost a laugh, almost pain. Elena looked down at her bracelet. The headstone is being replaced. Rosa chose white stone. I chose no roses. Luca's gaze moved to her wrist. What did you tell her? Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I told her I was done running. Luca did not speak. I told her I found the letter. That I knew she wasn't weak. That I was sorry for confusing fear with failure for so long. Her throat tightened, but she kept going. And I told her about you. Luca went still. Elena looked at him then. I told her I don't forgive you yet. His face remained controlled, but his eyes darkened. Good. I told her you don't forgive yourself either. His jaw tightened. And I told her, Elena inhaled slowly. I told her that maybe one day when this is over, I'll decide whether the boy she trusted is still somewhere inside the man he became. Luca looked away. Not fast enough. She saw it. The wound those words made. Not because they hurt, because they reached. For the first time since she had met him again, Luca Moretti had no answer. Weeks passed, and the war changed shape. It became less gunfire and more testimony. Less blood and more names. Elena stood behind bulletproof glass in federal hearings and spoke in a voice that did not shake. She identified Victor Sands. She described the ballroom. She named the stolen children not as assets, not as evidence, but as lives. The world watched. Some called her brave. Some called her dangerous. Some called her a liar. She survived all three. Luca sat in the back of the hearing room the day she gave her final statement, dressed in black, still pale, still healing, surrounded by men who would have burned the courthouse down if she asked. She never asked. She didn't need to. When the hearing ended, cameras waited outside. Reporters shouted questions. Miss Vale, are you afraid Victor Sands will return? Were you involved with the Moretti family before this investigation? Do you consider yourself Isabella De Luca? Elena stopped at the top of the courthouse steps. The city stretched before her, loud and hungry. Luca stood a few feet behind her. Close enough to protect, far enough not to own. Elena looked directly into the cameras. Victor Sands spent his life teaching children that blood means ownership, she said. He was wrong. The crowd fell quiet. My mother gave me life. Elena Vale gave me survival. Isabella De Luca gave me the truth. I am all of them. Luca watched her with something like awe. Elena lifted her chin. And when Victor comes back, he won't find a daughter waiting. Her voice hardened. He'll find every child he stole standing in his way. That night, she returned to the hospital. Not to hide. Not because she had nowhere else to go. Because people were still bleeding, and she still knew how to stop it. The ER went quiet when she walked in. Doctors looked up. Nurses froze. Security guards stood straighter. Maya stared at her from the nurse's station with tears in her eyes. Elena walked over, picked up a chart and said, "Don't look at me like that, I'm late for shift." Maya laughed and cried at the same time. Then she hugged her. For the first time in years, Elena let someone hold her without planning an escape route. Near midnight, after 3 patients, 1 broken wrist, 2 panic attacks, and a drunk man who called her an angel before vomiting into a trash can,
Is
Elena
this her?
stepped outside for air.
She's why I'm
A black car
here.
waited across the street.
Oh God, I
She
never
crossed
knew.
her arms. The rear window lowered. Luca sat inside, still not supposed to be out of bed, still pretending pain was something lesser men felt. Elena sighed. Absolutely not.
Stay down,
I didn't
Elena.
say anything.
I've got you.
You are outside
They're
my
getting
hospital in a
closer.
Mafia car at
Not on my
midnight.
watch.
It's a
Hold
secure
on.
vehicle. It's a dramatic
The ledger.
vehicle. His
I've
mouth
got it.
curved.
Move.
She walked to the curb but did not get in. He did not ask her to. That mattered. For a while, they stayed like that, her standing beneath the hospital lights, him inside the dark car, both of them caught between the life before and whatever came next. Finally, Luca said, "Pierce found another child." Elena's expression shifted. "Alive?" "Yes." "Safe?" "For now." She nodded slowly. "Then tomorrow we start again." Luca watched her. "You don't have to carry all of them." Elena looked toward the ER doors. Inside, monitors beeped. People cried. Nurses moved. Life kept breaking and being repaired in small, imperfect ways. "No," she said, "but I know what it feels like to wait for someone to come." Luca's gaze lowered. Then he opened the car door, stepped out carefully, and stood in front of her. The city noise softened around them. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small object. A silver locket. Elena's breath caught. Her mother's locket. Cleaned. Restored. No longer in Victor's hands. "I had Rosa repair it," Luca said. "She said I should give it back and not make a speech. She's wise. She threatened to shoot me if I made it about guilt. She's very wise." He placed the locket in Elena's palm. His fingers brushed hers once. Careful. Waiting. Elena opened it. Inside was no photograph, only a tiny folded piece of paper. She looked up. Luca's voice was low. "It's the address of the first safe house your mother used after the fire. I thought you might want to see it one day." Elena stared at him, then back at the locket. For once, he had not given her a weapon, not a file, Not a warning. Not protection disguised as control. He had given her a piece of her mother that did not bleed. Her eyes burned. "Thank you," she whispered. Luca nodded once, as if the words cost him more than pain. Elena closed her hand around the locket. Then, slowly, she stepped forward and pressed her forehead against his chest. Luca went completely still. She felt the hesitation in him, the fear of touching wrong, the fear of wanting too much. Then his arms came around her, gentle and shaking. Not a cage, not a claim, just warmth. Just a man who had spent 12 years becoming darkness, holding the woman who had walked through it and refused to disappear. Elena closed her eyes. For one breath there was no Victor, no cameras, no blood, no old fire. Only the steady beat beneath Luca's ribs. Still alive. Still here. Not forgiven. Not redeemed. Not simple. But real. And for now, real was enough. Across the street, the hospital doors opened and light spilled onto the wet pavement. Elena pulled back first. Luca led her. "I have to finish my shift," she said. "I'll wait." She raised an eyebrow. "In the car," he added, without intimidating patience. "I make no promises about doctors." "Luca," he smiled faintly. "I'll behave. You don't know how." "No," he said softly. "But I'm learning." Elena turned toward the ER, her mother's locket warm in her hand. At the door, she looked back. Luca stood beneath the streetlight, wounded and dangerous and alive, watching her with a devotion that no longer demanded she belong to him. Behind him, the city glowed with secrets still waiting to be burned open. Somewhere, Victor Sands was still running. Somewhere, stolen children were still waking from stolen lives. The war was not over, but Elena was no longer a ghost inside it. She pushed open the hospital doors and stepped back into the light. This time, when the ER went silent, she did not freeze. She smiled, and every shadow in the city learned her name.